Romanian Eagle. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526, The Problem of Migrant Labor, Part 2. Think about it for yourself. What was going on in the country at that time? Edel is indecisive, asks about the mental attack of the motherland, and thinks about the ways of the motherland in later generations. After thinking about it for a long time, I couldn't come up with any solution, because the national conditions are different, and the future generations are all their own people without national boundaries. What about the United States, the largest immigrant country? That's worse. The legal ones are called citizens, the illegal ones are the scapegoats. Once the economy is not good, it is the fault of these illegal migrant workers. It's like using the toilet when you need it and throwing it away when you don't need it. And these Bulgarians are somewhere in between, and that's where it gets tough. It would be easier if it were a pure foreign worker, but unfortunately it is not. As long as Edel is not willing to nest in the Black Sea, Bulgaria is an existence that cannot be ignored. That's why Edel is difficult to deal with. Although it is difficult to deal with, he needs to find a way first. Edel said after considering it. The current issue of foreign labor in Romania. We will try to block the entry of foreign labor first, and the other is to expand the number of jobs in the country, so that everyone can have jobs as much as possible. Edel can only think of a solution in terms of welfare for the troubles of its own nationals. Perhaps expanding the national welfare in medical education will help to soothe their emotions. But these two are big spenders. What should I do? Prime Minister Karaciuli, after the meeting, asked the Minister of Health and Health Help to make a plan to cover the country's medical education benefits. The plan that costs about 200 million lei a year told him not to exceed the standard. The Minister of Education and Health did not come, and Edel could only ask the Prime Minister to tell him. Okay, Your Majesty, I will inform Your Excellency Hulk. The Prime Minister agreed. Improving the welfare of the people and tightening the inflow of migrant workers is what Edel can think of at the moment. This is not to say that government officials can't think of it, and because there are two widely divergent approaches to dealing with these issues within the government. And this kind of muddy method will attract everyone's dissatisfaction. This plan can only be proposed by him, and only he can suppress the dissatisfaction of all parties to delay this problem. It still needs to be solved. Fortunately, 2 billion national debts have just been issued in the United States. I believe this can help Romania to speed up its economic development and create more jobs. It will help more or less. When the time is right, these problems will no longer be problems, because then it will be like a family. Then he changed the subject. What happened to the national debt issued by my country in the United States this time? The Chancellor of the Exchequer, Albert, who has the most say in this regard, said, "At present, my country's national debt is selling well in the United States. In addition to our country's good debt situation, the main issue is that Chase Manhattan Bank has outstanding issuance capabilities and has sold $1.47 billion of national debt. According to the information sent to us by Chase Bank, they are confident that they will advance 2 months to complete the sale of treasury bonds." Albert's words made everyone present smile. This large sum of money invested in the country will take the economy to a higher level. In fact, in the United States, the Morgan Consortium and the Rockefeller Consortium had a head-to-head confrontation around the issue of Romanian national debt. As for the final result, it can be seen from this news that Morgan failed to win, and Edel doesn't care about these issues at all. After all, it can make the Rockefeller family bow their heads in the United States and have not yet appeared in the world. Edel glanced at the smiling ministers and said, "For this money, set aside $500 million first. I will need it later." Edel's words immediately surprised the courtiers present. His Majesty looking at them who wanted to talk. Edel waved his hand to indicate that he had made up his mind. The money he intends to invest in the booming stock market in the United States, as long as it is raised by 1929, will help Romania through that period. Before that, you only need to buy large cap stocks, such as General Motors, US Steel and other large heavyweights. Now let's discuss how and where should the money be spent. Edel's voice fell, and the Minister of Industry Bardavin spoke first. Your Majesty, I think it is necessary to increase investment in industry, especially in western Ukraine and eastern Moldavia, because there is still a big economic gap between our newly returned territory and the original one. This will cause the dissatisfaction of the people of these newly annexed territories will also increase their centrifugal force. In fact, the Romanian government has invested a lot in the new territory in recent years, but half of the funds have been attracted by Eastern Galicia, who makes this region the only potential to become a heavy industry base. Of course, the Romanian government needs to take the lead in investing funds in this region that can rapidly enhance its national strength. As for Western Ukraine, it is because of its characteristics of quick investment, because in fact, the terrain of the Great Plains is conducive to transportation and investment in industry and agriculture. In the East Moldavia region, because it is a hilly terrain, it is not slow to invest money. Another unspoken reason is that the region's population is predominantly Romanian, and it cannot be let down by the government. Previously, many government investments did not care about the belt area, so remedial investment is also expected. The Transinova region and the new territories east of the Tisa River ranked last, because the region was relatively wealthy before, and the action of driving out the Hungarians benefited the local Romanians a lot. So since they are full, yes, then wait and invest. After all, the government's money is limited, and it is impossible to take care of everyone. It is common knowledge that every official knows to give priority to those who solve difficulties. Therefore, Edel also agreed with the words of the Minister of Industry, then put $500 million into it. However, this money is not enough for the rapid development of the two places. You need to find a way to come up with preferential policies to guide the investment of private funds. It's not that Edel doesn't want to put money into industry, but if they do, it will cause Romanian industry to overheat, and you can't just produce products, you need a market. At present, the market in Romania cannot bear so many commodities. Unless the British and French colonial markets can be opened, it is better for Edel to think about opening the Soviet market. After getting his share, Bardavin nodded again and again. Please rest assured, Your Majesty, I will come up with a reasonable plan for you to review after I go back. After seeing that the Minister of Industry took such a large piece of cake, others were anxious. At this time, the Minister of the Interior, Sylvester, couldn't help but be the first to speak. Your Majesty, our Ministry of Internal Affairs has always ensured the stability of domestic public security, and as the situation becomes more complicated, the requirements for our Ministry of Internal Affairs are also ahead of schedule. This requires us to spend more money on updating equipment to ensure the safety of our citizens and domestic peace. So I hope Your Majesty can pay more attention to the Ministry of the Interior. You can see how well Sylvester speaks. He doesn't mention funding throughout the article, only talking about the current difficulties of the Ministry of the Interior. And Edel also knew that with the development of the times, the Ministry of the Interior needs to invest more energy and equipment. So he said, you have prepared a plan for me to look at, mainly for the facilities and equipment, to strengthen the grassroots strength, and for the hard-working grassroots police detectives. You can also appropriately improve the treatment. After hearing Edel's agreement, Sylvester thanked him with satisfaction. Thank you, Your Majesty, for your concern for us. After the requests of the two consecutive people were agreed, the other ministers immediately began to speak out, fearing that they would be later than others. Your Majesty, about our department, His Majesty. Okay, let's talk one by one. As Edel slapped the table, the impetuous aura calmed down. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, chapter 527 Armored Division. After the meeting, Edel couldn't help rubbing his temples. The competition for these funds between these important ministers was too fierce, and even he, the arbiter, was dizzy. But in the end, in addition to throttling the $500 million invested in the US stock market in advance, Edel still held up to $480 million. Because he has other uses for these funds, he can't spill them all. As soon as the government personnel left, the military personnel came after the guards came in to report. Your Majesty, Admiral Friet and others asked to see you. Edel cheered up and ordered, please come in. Following Edel's orders, the Chief of Staff, Admiral Farit, and the Minister of the Navy, Vice Admiral Lumaden, Came in point, Your Majesty. I heard that this time, $2 billion of national debt was issued in the United States. So Lieutenant General Lumberton, and I hope to put some of the funds into the defense cause. Admiral Fried was a soldier in the end, and his words were not so euphemistic. As soon as he entered the door, he revealed the purpose of the two's trip. It is clear that this time the military also wants to profit from the issuance of national debt. Admiral Fried's words made Edel couldn't help but put his hand on his forehead. He was about to become a Tang monk and everyone wanted to share a piece of the pie. However, the attitude of the military still needs to be considered, and to ensure the combat effectiveness of the army does require investment. Then tell me what plan your military has prepared for this. Let's talk about it first. This money is mainly used for the domestic economy, so it is impossible to invest too much in the military. Edel was vaccinated first, otherwise, according to the character of the military, he might want to surprise him. Your Majesty, we know this. The main purpose of this visit is to obtain some funds for the research and development of new weapons. After Admiral Fried finished speaking, he put the two documents in front of him. It seemed that the military had come prepared this time. Edel picked up the two documents and found that one was the Army's new equipment development and troop reorganization plan, and the other was the Navy's ship construction and new equipment research and development plan. Edel did not read the two plans first, but asked instead, "How is the reorganization of the Army Corps going?" Admiral Fried, who was inquired, immediately replied, "Your Majesty, the work of dismantling the regiment is going very smoothly. 21 of the 24 divisions currently owned by the army have been reorganized and will be completed next year. All the adaptation work." Admiral Fried's words made Edel very satisfied. It is also a general trend to change the 2 brigade system to the 3 regiment system. It seems that Admiral Fried has done a good job. Edel then asked another topic of concern. How is the military exchange with the Germans? At present, the first batch of exchanges in Germany has arrived in China. I went to see them in person. These are young officers with rich experience. We communicate with them fairly well. It can be seen that the Germans still attach great importance to exchanges with us. In addition, our exchange of military technology with Germany is also good. Their aircraft and heavy artillery technology is worth learning from. And we are not bad. The Germans are full of praise for our tank technology. Hearing Admiral Fried's answer, Edel said with satisfaction, "That's good. The military exchanges between our country and Germany are very important, which greatly improves our national defense. I will go down to supervise, and there will be no setbacks in the exchanges between the two countries." After talking with Admiral Fried, Edel asked about Admiral Lumberton of the Navy. "How is the progress of the ships currently under construction?" "Your Majesty, the current progress is good, and it can be guaranteed to be completed according to the plan. Especially the Brebisser is more focused on ensuring its construction efficiency. The Brebisser that Lieutenant General Lumberton mentioned was the 10,000-ton heavy cruiser in the previous 5-year plan of the Navy. The ship Brebisser is 194 meters long, 18.5 meters wide, has a standard displacement of 11,000 tons, 9,950 tons declared to the outside world, and a full load of 13,670 tons. 4 heavy oil boilers, 4 steam turbines. The maximum output power is 110,000 horsepower, and the maximum horsepower is 34 knots, 7,000 nautical miles / 14 knots, 3,800 nautical miles / 18 knots. The weaponry is equipped with 8 203 mm 45 caliber naval guns in a layout of 2 fronts and 2 rears. 6 single-barreled 88 mm 50 caliber high-level dual-purpose guns, 6 twin-mounted 20 mm caliber anti-aircraft guns, and 4x twin-mounted 610 mm torpedo tubes. The armor is side armor 127, 146 mm, deck 37, 46 mm, mine armor 25, 58 mm. The main turret is 35 mm, the gun mount is 25, 38 mm, and the ammunition magazine is 52, 90 mm. It can be said that this heavy cruiser, named after the founder of the first Romanian kingdom Dacia, fully meets the needs of the Romanian Navy. After asking the two of them, Edel finally picked up the top army plan. Turning to the first page, Edel saw the eye-catching title, Suggestions for armored brigade reformers for the current armored brigade in this proposal. It is believed that its small size is not conducive to a breakthrough role in the war, and in the future the enemy will certainly have a large number of anti-tank weapons, even armored units. And in view of the increased military capabilities of Romania's main threat to the Soviet Union in the future, the brigade-level armored forces are also reducing its deterrence. Therefore, Romania needs to strengthen the armored forces, mainly to upgrade the current armored brigades of 1 brigade and 2 regiments to 1 division and 3 regiments. Chief among them is the addition of an infantry regiment. In addition, in view of the fact that the motorized infantry regiment Bunsen's breakthrough ability was found to be poor in the previous battle, the vehicle trucks used by its troops did not have the ability to travel in the wild. So I hope to improve this situation in the future. It is mainly necessary to develop tracked vehicles, preferably with certain protection capabilities and firepower to deal with emergencies. In addition, the current number of tanks in its core armored regiment is relatively small when facing the enemy, and it is also hoped that the current 112 3x4x9 plus 4 supplementary tanks will be changed to 148 4x4x9 plus 4. In addition, the mechanized infantry regiment also needs to be assigned an armored battalion, 4x9 plus 2, for each regiment to allow it to have a small-scale independent breakthrough capability. So the final armored division needs to have 224 tanks. In addition, with the expansion of the armored division, the demand for air defense, reconnaissance, and support firepower will also increase. So its subordinate air defense battalion, artillery battalion, transportation battalion and other units also need to increase their equipment and personnel. Edel gasped when he saw this, but it wasn't that he scared him. But the armored troops are very expensive. This brigade reform division is burning money completely. He is distressed. Edel resisted the urge to refuse on the spot and continued watching. The following is normal. It is all about the research and development requirements of new equipment, such as the research and development of bombers, transport aircraft, new artillery and other weapons. It was only then that Edel discovered that Admiral Ploiesti knew that the brigade reformer was spending too much and did not dare to speak from other aspects. Edel put down the Army's plan and picked up the Navy's plan. He was shocked when he didn't read it. The Navy actually wanted to do this. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, chapter 528 Mercia class battleship. Of course, what can scare Edel is the extraordinary stuff that is the symbol of the power of this era, the battleship. The plan submitted by the Navy this time is a construction plan for a battleship. Surprised by the Navy's ambition, Edel couldn't help asking, "You are going to build a battleship? Have you considered the actual cost and whether it is needed?" In the face of Edel's question, Admiral Lomatin, Minister of the Navy, answered confidently, "Your Majesty, the battleships are very much needed for our country. At present, according to our country's 1923 naval shipbuilding plan, after all of them are completed, our country will only have 1 Bribesta class heavy cruiser and 3 Dorks class light cruisers, codenamed Q-class cruisers, a small fleet of Fort Cole class cruisers and dozens of destroyers and torpedo boats." After Lieutenant General Lomatin introduced his country's naval power, he talked about external threats. Looking at the Black Sea, the countries with battleships include the Soviet Union and Turkey. Turkey has the Goban battle cruiser, and the Soviet Union has the Sigan-Gangert class battleship. In particular, the Soviet Union's Sigan-Gangert class battleship is a threat to our country. It is very large, and we have received news that the Soviet Union is preparing to refit the full-egged battleship. According to the relationship between our country and the Soviet Union, we have to pay attention to this. Therefore, we must have our own battleship, which is not only related to our country in the world, it can also deter potential enemies. Lieutenant General Lomatin was very worried about the initial recovery of the Soviet Union, because he knew too well the temperament of the Russians. And Romania was one of the countries that violated the interests of the Soviet Union the most in the early days. And the Sigan-Gangert class battleship kept him awake at night, so he was most concerned about Romania's ability to compete with the giants of the sea. Edel also had to admit that Lieutenant General Lomatin was very eloquent when he asked for funds. However, he pointed out a very critical problem, that the cost of building battleships is very expensive, and the cost, after being put into use, is not cheap. Even if I approve your construction, how do you plan to solve the maintenance and training costs on weekdays? Edel still has a preliminary understanding of the Navy. It is necessary to know that the cost of building ships is high, but the maintenance and training are not low. This is why battleships are symbols of great powers. At present, Romania's energy is mainly focused on economic development, and for weapons and equipment, it is mainly based on pre-research and reserve technology. Your Majesty, we intend to cut down some of the follow-up destroyer and cruiser construction plans, and use the funds for the construction of new battleships and subsequent training and maintenance costs. It was clear that Lieutenant General Lomaden was determined to build battleships. Whether Edel is to take care of naval sentiment or to enhance national cohesion, he must agree. Of course, if Admiral Lomaden plans to cut some destroyers and cruisers to build battleships, it would be nice to hear them. How many ships have been built by the Romanian Navy in total? Can they all be cancelled? Seeing the firm attitude of Vice Admiral Lomaden, Edel began to take a serious look at the naval plan. In any case, you need to know what the battleship you built at your own expense looks and performs. The construction plan of the battleship Mercia. These words are marked in bold. I really didn't see that the Navy had even chosen the name of the ship. It seemed that it would be impossible not to agree, and to be able to build a battleship under the name of the first monarch to unify Romania is naturally extraordinary. Even in order to give Edel an intuitive experience, the Navy also drew sketches. Judging from the sketches, the Mercia uses a long forecastle. Two 380mm triple turrets are arranged in a stepped manner in the front, and one is arranged in the rear. The forecastle is longer and extends all the way to the rear turret. Four 150mm triple mounted secondary guns are arranged on the port and port sides of the number 2 and number 3 main turrets, respectively, point below the waterline of the ship. A cylindrical underwater defense system is adopted. The inner diameter of the cylinder is 3.8 meters and the outer diameter is 7.2 meters. The inner cylinder is empty, and the outer side can be loaded with liquid material such as fuel. Longitudinal bulkheads are provided on the inner side of the cylindrical underwater defense structure, and at the center line of the hull point the longitudinal bulkhead divides the cabin area into left and right parts. The engine room area consists of 4 engine rooms and 6 boiler rooms. The engine room area and the bottom of the ship under the main turret adopt a 3-layer bottom structure. Root cable ducts in the center of the bottom of the ship within the triple bottom. Emergency diesel generator compartments are arranged at the bottom of the front of the number 1 main turret and the rear of the number 3 main turret. The front mast is a round rod type, and the rear mast is attached to the base of the tower structure. To install the round rod, the two chimneys before and after the ship are arranged relatively close, and a firing director is installed in between. The engine room of the battleship Mercia is divided into a front engine room and a rear engine room, and the boiler room is between the 2 cabins. This arrangement is conducive to improving the vitality of the ship, because after one cabin is bombed, the power system of the other cabin can still function. However, such a design increases the scope of the main turret and engine room area, and the probability of being hit also increases accordingly. In terms of defense, the armor belt of the battleship Mercia's broadside waterline is installed at an 8-degree angle. The thickness is 250mm plate or 280mm plate and 70mm plate or 10mm plate to form a combined armor plate, and the combined armor at the thickest point reaches 360mm. On deck defense, the thickness of the upper deck is 36mm plus 9mm. Deck 2 is 12mm. Deck 3 is 100mm plus 12mm. The main turret armor consists of 380mm front armor, 200mm front side, and 200mm turret roof. The thickness of the turret base plate is between 350 and 280mm. The front canopy of the podium is 120 plus 10mm. The side horizontal deck is 250, 90mm plus 25mm or 10mm combined board point. In terms of power system, it is driven by a 120,000 horsepower steam turbine. The boiler steam pressure is 25 kg/square centimeter, and the steam temperature is 325 C. The main engine is a geared turbine with a speed of 238 rpm. The main generator set is 4 sets of 450 kilowatt turbine generators, and the emergency generator set is 4 sets of 800 kilowatt diesel engine generators. All 4 propellers have 3 blades and a diameter of 4.8 meters. The weight distribution of the Merha is 10,369 tons of hull weight, 13,045 tons of protective armor, and 6,539 tons of weaponry. The whole ship totaled 29,953 tons. Its standard displacement reaches 36,500 tons, and the full load displacement reaches 44,100 tons. Its main data are as follows. The ship has a total length of 234.5 meters, a waterline of 229.4 meters and a width of 31.2 meters. Draft the 9th of May 10.3 meters. Power plant 8 boilers, 4 steam turbines, main engine output power 120,000 horsepower, maximum 128,000 horsepower, 4 shaft propulsion point. Maximum speed is 28 knots. Endurance 6,000 nautical miles / 14 knots, 4,500 nautical miles / 20 knots. Main guns 3 380 over 50 caliber guns. Secondary guns 4 150 inch / 55 caliber secondary guns. Anti-aircraft guns 12 88mm anti-aircraft guns, 18 twin 40mm anti-aircraft guns, 24 twin 20mm anti-aircraft guns. Establishment of 1870 people, including 120 officers. Edel looked at this plan to compete with Big 7. He couldn't help asking, "Your Excellency Minister, can Romania build such a powerful warship at present?" Edel's suspicion is also justified. At present, Romania's shipbuilding capacity has just been able to build a 10,000-ton cruiser, and it is too slow to launch such a high-end battleship directly. Hearing Edel's words, Lieutenant General Lomaden said a little embarrassedly, "Your Majesty, of course, this warship cannot rely on our country alone. So I invite the help of my German counterparts. In addition, our country has a good relationship with Italy, and I also ask for their technical assistance." Edel understood the words of the Secretary of the Navy. This warship was built mainly with the help of Germany and Italy. I believe that no one will refuse to use other countries' battleships to improve their skills. As for the violent reaction this warship caused by the other powers, Romania was there anyway. Of course, this is also a huge improvement for Romania. At least it can greatly improve Romania's shipbuilding capabilities. Moreover, Romania's own technology will also develop rapidly in the exchanges with Germany and Italy. Looking at this addictive battleship, Edel decided to build one, after thinking about it. As for the violent response from Britain, France and other countries, we will talk about it later. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 529. The repercussions brought by the battleship. News that Romania was going to build a battleship soon spread. Building a big guy like a battleship requires cooperation from all sides, so it is impossible to cover up the news. When the country learned that the Navy was going to build a battleship, everyone was excited, because in this era, the construction of battleships is a symbol of a country's national strength. The battleship is also the top product of the high-tech technology of this era, and no one does not want their own country to have the ability to build it. For this reason, some domestic newspapers called on the public to donate money to the Romanian battleship, and the Navy even asked the propaganda department to bring people to give speeches in major cities. The ship model allows the public to have an intuitive understanding of the Navy. Of course, the most popular among the people is a model of the Mercia-class battleship. The naval officers who are responsible for explaining the model every day are too tired to straighten their waists. In addition, the Department of the Navy has also set up a special shipbuilding fund. And in order to increase the enthusiasm of everyone to donate actively, the Navy not only donated various ship models to donors, but also specially made badges to donate. Of course, for those large donations, the Navy is better prepared. The model of the battleship Mercia and the letter of thanks written by Lieutenant General Lomaden, Minister of the Navy, are sure to make people feel satisfied. Under the propaganda of several sets of combinations of the Navy, the shipbuilding fund has raised nearly 10 million lei in just 1 week. The model of the battleship Mercia alone was sent out, and the thank you letter handwritten by Your Excellency Minister was almost sour. According to the estimates of the Navy Department, the entire fundraising operation should be able to raise funds between 60 million and 70 million lei. This can cover 1/3 of the construction cost. The construction cost of this battleship Merca is as high as 190 million lei. Only Romania's most expensive weapon. No one point mainly because many devices need new research and development. The cost is high. If you switch to the UK, where the shipbuilding industry is developed and strong, it is estimated that it will only cost 60% of the cost of Romania. The Navy received such a huge donation that Admiral Friet wanted the army to publicize it as well. However, considering the gap between the army and the navy, his budding heart was put down again. The navy is a natural aristocratic arm, which is comparable to the bitterness of the army. The news of Romania's construction of battleships, of course, not only resonated violently at home, but also caused an uproar abroad. At a time when all countries have stopped building battleships, this naval holiday, Romania's shipbuilding action is so conspicuous, let alone a big guy comparable to Big 7. Therefore, this incident has caused huge repercussions in the navies of the world, especially Britain and France, which have huge interests in Europe. In France, Le Figaro reported on this. Romania's shipbuilding plan not only broke the division of naval power in the Black Sea, but also had a dramatic impact on Europe. Because as far as we know, the country's giant ship has help from Germany and Italy, and these two countries from participating in the construction of Romanian battleships, after all, serve their own navies. And France has many disputes with these two countries, so the French government must not turn a blind eye to this. As for the British side, the Times also commented on Romanian construction of battleships. We should note that in the Balkans, Romania began to build its own battleships. This shows that this country, which has gained huge interests in World War I, has begun to have its own ambitions. For this reason, the British Empire needs to pay attention to the turmoil that may be caused by Romania in the Balkans. For this reason, it is best for my country to warn this ambitious country that the peaceful environment in Europe cannot be broken. And some British tabloids even sneered, can Romania build a good battleship? As for the Soviet Union, which had a huge territorial dispute with Romania, it expressed its attitude in the Red Star. We have noticed the construction of battleships in the Black Sea by neighboring Romania, which in turn has increased tensions in the region. Here we need to show it that the Soviet Union is not afraid of this naval preparation, because the Soviet Union also had the same construction technology. If Romania continues to build more battleships, the Soviet Union will surely complete the suppression of the Romanian Navy with 10 times the strength. Of course, the Soviet Union's words are self-bragging. At present, the only thing they can do is the 4-class Gangat-class battleship, and its domestic economy has just returned to pre-war levels. So it can only be said in the newspapers. As for Britain and France, of course, it is not only mentioned in the newspapers today. The British and French ambassadors will join hands to visit. Your Majesty, I hope your country's naval construction plan can explain it to us so as not to cause unnecessary misunderstandings. The British ambassador, Reed Plyman, explained his intentions to Edel as soon as he saw him. In fact, a M-class battleship did not cause tension in Britain and France. Don't look at the wealth of the French and British empires. They are really better than the navy. The Romanian navy, which can fight only a fraction, can't find the north. What they were concerned about was whether Romania would take this opportunity to aggressively build battleships and affect the balance of power in Europe. You must know that in the design of Britain and France, Romania's main role was to prevent the penetration of the Soviet Union into Europe, not to let it meddle in European affairs. Although the construction of battleships is not to interfere in European affairs, it is also a possible precursor, and Britain and France have to be taken precautions. For the French ambassador, Monctor, the situation is even more serious. Although France and Italy are currently competing for the interests of the Mediterranean Sea, they have the upper hand, but as the Romanians and Italians get closer and closer, they cannot help but be vigilant. Especially in the construction of battleships in Romania, the depth of Italian involvement is even more disturbing. The Italian and Romanian economies have grown closer together, and if so militarily, then a de facto alliance is not far off. Edel not only smiled, and said after watching the nervous questioning of the British and French ambassadors, "Don't be nervous, the two ambassadors. Regarding the construction of battleships by our country, it is also to protect Romania's interests in the Black Sea. As we all know, our country has a poor relationship with the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Navy, which has 4 battleships, poses a huge threat to our coastline. In order to protect more and more, the more prosperous the coastline and trade were, the more our country had to build battleships to increase its strength point. But there is no need for your country to build such a high-cost super battleship. As far as I know, the cost of this super battleship in your country is enough to build 2 battleships with good performance, and the combat power of the 2 battleships will also be higher than this one. Much taller British after all." Ambassador Reed Plemon pointed out that the cost of building the warship was unreasonable. For this reason, Edel had no choice but to speak. Because our navy takes into account the future development, in order to keep this battleship from falling behind, it can only increase the requirements at this time. French Ambassador Mengto asked the key to their trip. Then, Your Majesty, how many more battleships will your country need to build next? Facing Mengto's question, Edel spread out his hands and said, "Just this one is going to consume too much government funds. Where can many more ships be built?" The British and French ambassadors left with a satisfactory answer, and Edel was relieved. Originally, according to his plan, the construction of battleships would not start until around 1930, but the plan could not keep up with the changes. Unexpectedly, the Romanian Navy is so keen on building battleships, and the country is so eager to have its own sea monster. Edel also agreed. Although the future belongs to aircraft carriers, battleships also have an irreplaceable role in the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. So go ahead, as soon as possible. Romania does not need to take care of the feelings of Britain and France in everything. At this moment, Edel felt that his years of immersion in development had substantial meaning. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 530 New Year 039 S speech. Britain and France also stopped after Romania said it would build only 1 battleship. The construction of the Merha is also proceeding in an orderly manner. First, the required new technologies are developed and verified, and then the first keel is laid by Lieutenant General Lomadin at the Varna Naval Shipyard. It also represented the beginning of Romanian construction of battleships. Although this construction time is prolonged due to the need for research and development of various new technologies, it is expected to take 4 to 5 years to complete. It also represents a huge improvement in Romanian shipbuilding capabilities. While Romania was bustling with the construction of battleships, time was passing quickly. Soon 1925 passed, and the arrival of 1926 was not different from the past, except that the Romanian economy developed more rapidly. In a hall in the palace, a group of people wearing clothes with the words of the national radio station were busy with people coming and going. Because today Edel is coming to the radio to give a New Year's speech to the nation. New Year's speeches by the leaders of monarchies were commonplace in later generations, but not so much now. As for the Romanian national radio, it is the official media established after the war. Before that, there were only a few small private radio stations in the country, which were mainly based on the entertainment economy. Of course, Edel would not let go of the emerging media such as radio, and instructed the government to establish an official media in order to control the channels of this new type of public opinion in his own hands. As a national radio station covering the whole country, it mainly promotes national policies, politics, economics and human history. And this time Edel's New Year's speech in the face of the country naturally needs to be placed on the national radio station. How are you getting ready? The station director is questioning the busy station staff. Although he knew that these people were the best technicians in Taiwan, he couldn't help but ask. It's all ready to start recording. The person in charge of the recording and broadcasting machine gave a thumbs up to the station chief. After getting a satisfactory answer, the director walked to Edel, who was waiting, and said, "Your Majesty, the recording equipment is ready. Do you know when it will start?" Edel, who was memorizing the speech, nodded and replied, "Then let's begin. As Your Majesty. In order to make his New Year's speech not wrong, Edel has already memorized the speech. However, in order to prevent accidents, he still needs to look at the manuscript to speak for a while, since it is not a video, and he can't see others. When Edel stood in front of the recording equipment, the staff in charge of recording said loudly, "Point ready to start. Point 3 to enemy subjects. I'm very happy to spend 1925 with you. Romania's economic and military strength has grown significantly in the past. These are inseparable from the contributions of all your subjects. It is you who made Romania prosperous and strong. Here I need to thank you for your hard work in the past. Thank you for your hard work, which has allowed Romania to improve its status in the world. These are the hard work of farmers, workers, soldiers, and people from all walks of life. Romania's strength has made great progress in recent years. In the past, my country could only build 1,000-ton warships, but now 40,000-ton battleships are also being built in docks. Weapons and equipment can only be purchased from other countries' technologies. Up to now, we can develop our own. Aircraft, cannons, tanks, etc. are all independently developed, designed, and produced in my country, and can even be exported to other countries economically. My country's industrial and agricultural production has grown from 3.43 billion lei in 1905 to over 40 billion lei in 1925. In 20 years, it has increased by 12 times, which is all thanks to everyone. Moreover, my country has also changed from a backward country that exports grain and minerals to an industrial country that mainly exports food, machinery and other products. Moreover, in the past 20 years, my country's status in the world has also increased day by day. From a neglected Balkan country to the point where countries all over the world pay attention to Romania. Point of course, with the efforts of all the subjects in the military, our country also defeated Germany and Austria and liberated the people of all ethnic groups who were oppressed by it. At the same time, it also took back the lands it occupied. Moreover, our country also resisted the influence of the Red Empire on Europe and defended the peace of Europe. The glory of the past will let it pass, and the most important thing is to look to the future. So the new year has begun, and here I hope that Romania will be stronger in the future. This is not just my wish, but also for the people who love Romania. Wish. So in the new year, we need to work hard, and everyone needs to contribute to this. Of course, the strength of the motherland will also benefit everyone. For this reason, I appeal to everyone for a better tomorrow in Romania. And try hard. Edel's New Year's speech can be regarded as a summary of the development of Romania in the previous 20 years. Everyone present can feel the pride of Romania's rapid development, which is what Edel would like to see. So, after he finished speaking, there was applause from the scene. Edel smiled and raised his hand to signal that everyone should not be so enthusiastic. Then he walked to the director and asked, "When will it be broadcast?" We took it back immediately. It was announced on the radio before, and it will be broadcast at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Go. After Edel finished speaking, he left. On the first day of the new year, his business was more than that. The usual activities of having fun with the people are still going on. The head of the station immediately asked his subordinates to quickly clean up the machine, and also specially sent someone to send the recorded negatives back. First point, on the first day of the new year, as long as there is no need to rush work, most business owners will give everyone a day off. Farmers have to rest at home, and winter in Romania is not gentle at all. Thanks to the wide coverage of national radio, the news that Edel will give a New Year's speech on the radio has everyone looking forward to it. The workers of the city wanted to hear what the monarch who led Romania to prosperity would have to say about it. The barren entertainment in the countryside makes people look forward to the king's New Year's speech. So it's almost 2 o'clock. People are all around the radio, waiting earnestly. At 2 o'clock, a heavy voice came from the radio. "Next, please listen to His Majesty Edel's New Year's speech. Subjects, it is a pleasure to be with you all." Edel's voice came over the radio. For the vast majority of people, this was the first time the wise monarch's voice was heard, so some people couldn't help but stir up. However, as Edel sums up the past 20 years, many people recall the difficult years of those years before they can feel the richness of today. After the talk on the radio, many people realized that Romania is not what it used to be. So much so that the next day, many newspapers reported on all aspects of Romania's 20 years of development point. But no matter how you report it, the past is only the past. A new beginning awaits them. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 531 Libyan oil. 1. Romania in 1926 was still so busy, people were running around for life or ideals. Also in the deserts of North Africa, a group of Romanians are busy here. The June sun scorched across the Libyan desert, creating heat wave after wave of heat, and while it wasn't yet the hottest season, this level of heat was enough to make you feel uncomfortable. In this hot weather, Warhawk directed his team to erect drilling equipment. Warhawk and his team belonged to the exploration team of the Romanian Oil Company, which was transferred to the exploration team under its name after the creation of the Italian Oil Company last year. At present, there are oil exploration teams from Italy, Romania and the United States in the oil company. These oil exploration teams, currently spread across the vast Libyan land, have sought the bloodline of these industries. Hurry up and set up the steel frame quickly. Also tell the guards that we are running out of drinking water. Ask them when the next batch of water will be delivered. As the captain, Warhawk wiped the sweat from his forehead and ordered his subordinates to work. Speaking of the escort team, mainly Libya is currently not peaceful. The Italian government set up to ensure their valuable oil exploration team. Since the Italian occupation of Libya, the local tribes have rioted from time to time. This has been going on for more than 10 years, and it only subsided a lot after Mussolini came to power. It's not that they supported the leader of the ****, and it was suppressed by force. However, although the local tribes were suppressed, there was still a certain danger to economic activity. Therefore, Italy has specially arranged escorts for each exploration team to ensure their safety. In addition to protecting their safety, these escorts will also do some logistical transportation. After all, the area they need to explore is all sand, and everything needs to be transported from the outside. And the commander of this escort team is already familiar with Warhawk, so he is so carefree for people to ask. Captain, I just asked the escort, and they said the next supply will arrive in 2 days. Okay, I know. After answering the subordinate, Warhawk saw that the team member carrying a drill pipe was suddenly slapped, and quickly reminded, be careful, pay attention to your feet, don't damage these equipment. You also pay attention to safety. It's no wonder that Warhawk reminded loudly that these drill pipes and drill bits are made of ultra high strength steel, so the price is naturally not cheap. Without these materials, the intended formation could not be drilled. You must know that this is a formation that needs to be drilled for thousands of meters. Without good materials, these drill bits and drill pipes have long been scrapped. And it costs more than $100,000 to drill a well, and Warhawk is now the 4th well drilled. This is that hundreds of thousands have been squandered by him, but he has not found a drop of oil. But there is a well that has tapped groundwater, which is a nomadic tribe, that is cheap. This time, Warhawk intends to drill to a depth of 2,000 meters. I hope this time I can have good luck. According to his understanding, the new company will pay up to $100,000 for each well that produces oil, in the hope that he will get 2.0. Even though 3 wells have been abandoned, the exploration team is still full of energy, and they are eager for bonuses. Otherwise, in this hot desert that lacks water and food, who is doing hard and tiring work, if it is not for the generous salary and bonuses, who will take their lives to make money. Thinking of the bonus, he is full of energy. If he can get the bonus, his children can go to a noble school. In the future, his future will be much better than his own. What you do is much better than your own exploration team. It is hard, tiring, and sometimes life-threatening. While Warhawk and others were promoting the Libyan oil industry, Anthony, president of the Italian Oil Company, arrived in Benghazi by boat. This time he came to inspect oil exploration. Mr. Domife, how's the recent exploration going? As soon as Anthony saw the person in charge of the place, he asked, Your Mightiness, at present various exploration teams are stepping up their exploration of oil, but there is no good news yet. The person in charge answered cautiously, and his words upset Anthony. Can you urge them to hurry up? Rome is waiting for their good news. Anthony can make the person in charge smile wryly. He is only in charge of logistics, and he can only rely on these exploration teams to make oil. Your Excellency, we can't urge them at present. At present, the various exploration teams are already working overtime, and they don't even have time to drink afternoon tea. Anthony, who was a little impatient to listen to his explanation, waved his hand to stop the person in charge from continuing, only to see him staring at the other side and saying, "You have to know that the patience of those people in Rome is limited. At present, the company has spent nearly tens of millions of lire, but there is no result. I'm under a lot of pressure now. Don't let me pass the pressure on you. Your Excellency. Your Excellency, This urges the exploration team to speed up. The person in charge, who was frightened by Anthony, agreed with a stutter. Go. Anthony waved his hand and let go of the poor person in charge. In fact, Anthony knew that it was none of his business, but who made him feel too stressed. He always needed a place to vent. It's better to vent on subordinates than to keep it in his heart, and now he is much better. In fact, he still has some grievances in his heart, blaming Romania, the second largest shareholder, because Romania did not know where to get the news, saying that their research found that there are oil resources in the Siite basin in Libya. So the Italian government, which had high hopes for this, immediately carried out large-scale exploration in the area. However, it has been too fast for a year, and there has been no news of oil being released from the local area. Anthony, the company's president, is naturally under great pressure. The Italian government needs oil to develop the economy, and the rich and powerful in Rome also need oil to make a lot of money. As for Romania, who provided the news, Anthony certainly couldn't afford to offend him, and could only find a balance in his subordinates. Anthony K, who was full of worries, was casually wandering around Benghazi, which was full of exotic styles. He plans to visit local officials to deepen the company's local influence. After all, this is the logistics base for the company's exploration in Libya, and it should be visited for the company's interests. Although the government has equipped the exploration team with escorts, this attitude is enough to attract local officials. But sometimes there is something wrong with it. After all, the magistrate is not as good as the current one. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, chapter 532 Libyan oil, 2. Antonico's worries were not felt at all by Warhawk, who was working far away in the desert. Because he had just come back from the drilling position exhausted, and he couldn't even wash the oil stains all over his body, and fell down on the bed full of peculiar smell. The diesel engine that drove the drilling before had malfunctioned, and Warhawk took someone to repair it quickly. The diesel engines used for drilling are not small in size, and it is time consuming and laborious to maintain, so that even the strong body of Warhawk is also exhausted. Now he just wants to rest, and doesn't care about anything else. While Warhawk was resting, the drilling rig continued to work. The people left behind are also meticulously checking the operation of the equipment. The rumble of the drilling rig is annoying enough, but these people are used to it. Some seem so ordinary. Suddenly, the sound of punchy sounded, and the drill bit sank. Workers familiar with the drilling operation immediately realized what was being drilled. Go and call the captain. We should have drilled into something. Hopefully it won't be groundwater this time. The drilling crews were chatting with each other before the people who ran to tell Warhawk to go away. The black oil sprayed out with a grey color of mud. The splashed oil was nearly 100 meters high, and the drilling rig was instantly changed to black. We hit the oil. Ha. The oil is out. The people present cheered for the oil that came out. After nearly a year of hard work, they finally saw the results. When Warhawk arrived at the rig, he couldn't help but be surprised by the spray of oil so high. We are afraid we haven't hit a big oil field. Because in Warhawk's life, he has never seen oil spray so high, and its spray is so fascinating. He couldn't help but gently stretched out his hand to catch the jet of crude oil and licked it slowly and then carefully. Aftertaste not astringent, not bitter. This is a sign of good quality oil. However, Warhawk was the captain in the end, and he immediately gave the order, regardless of the beauty of the oil jet. Quick, prepare the equipment to hold it down. You can't let crude go to waste. It's in the sand. Under Warhawk's order, the members of the exploration team immediately prepared equipment to tame the irascible black dragon. And Warhawk said to the defense captain, who also came, "Send a telegram to the company with hit the oil." After he finished speaking, He didn't care about the captain, who was full of surprises, and took his team members into the work of taming. The captain also knew the importance of the news of the oil release, and immediately arranged for his team to rush to the nearby town as quickly as possible to report the great news to the Italian government and the Italian oil company. It's out of oil. The news quickly reached Benghazi. The head of the area, panting, knocked on the door of Antonico, who was staying at the hotel, and told him the good news. The president of the Iro Oil Company danced in the room. If you can make a 180-pound fat man dance with the wind, you can imagine how much impact this news has on him. Anthony, whose pressure had disappeared, asked immediately after he stopped dancing, which exploration team. The number 12 exploration team drilled crude oil at a location 15 kilometers west of the Giallo Oasis. This is a high-yielding well with a daily crude oil output of 6,000 tons, and it is still high-quality oil. When the local person in charge said this, his face turned red, and he was also stimulated by the good news. Let people rush over with equipment immediately, and the problem of oil transportation also needs to be solved. We need to let the Italian people see Libyan oil as soon as possible. In addition, bring the bonus to the exploration team and send it to everyone. I want everyone who explores to know that the company will not treat them badly. Anthony is the president of the company after all. After calming down, he quickly talked about all kinds of things that needed to be done. I will bring the equipment and money in person. And what about the transportation line? You do not need to worry. Anthony waved his hand and continued. The government will immediately order the construction of a road to connect it for short-term oil transportation. I will prepare for the oil pipeline as soon as I go back. This oil company is mainly owned by the government, and I believe they are more anxious than themselves. While the oil company was cheering on the oil news, Italy was not bad either. Prime Minister Libya has drilled for oil. Inside the Prime Minister's palace, the secretary broke into Mussolini's office with a telegram and reported the good news to him. Great. Now Italy finally has oil. Hearing the good news, Mussolini, who was working, couldn't help but waved his fist. All Italian oil is currently imported, and the discovery of oil in Libya is enough to make him happy. Speaking of which, Mussolini was troubled by many officers after he came to power. The biggest headache for him is that Italy lacks various resources for industrial development, such as coal, iron ore, oil, etc. Anyway, all kinds of resources are lacking, except for the lack of population. But these people have to eat and work. How can this not bother him? Finding oil now from Libya is definitely good news. Mussolini retook the telegram from the secretary and read it. Good point. After reading the telegram, Mussolini called out 3 times in a row, because the telegram said that the calculation of oil production from oil wells, the preliminary estimate of the discovered oil field reserves, was about 500 million tons. As for how many further exploration is needed, a full 500 million tons of crude oil is enough for Italy's current use. For this good news, Mussolini was naturally overjoyed. Now he starts planning ideas about the Italian oil industry. Where to put the oil industry? Whether to put it in Palermo or in Genoa, where it has many followers, is a real question. The news of Libya's oil output also quickly spread to Romania. When Edel heard the news, he didn't take it too seriously, which surprised the captain of the guard, who reported to him, Horia. No way, you already know that there are huge reserves of crude oil there. How can you make Edel happy? And his attention is currently on Poland, because Piłsudski has just been named commander-in-chief of the army for life, which also represents Poland's entry into its dictatorship. The close relationship between Romania and Poland has forced Edel to focus on Poland. In the context of the rapid replacement of several Polish governments and the increasingly chaotic political situation, Piłsudski became more and more dissatisfied with the government, and finally issued a statement calling for the resignation of the Wittes cabinet. The new government was formed in the SYNOPSIS alliance, which Piłsudski strongly criticized. On May 12 to 14, 1926, Piłsudski returned to power in a coup, supported by the Socialist Party, the Polish People's Party Wyzwolenie faction, the Peasants' Party, and even the Communist Party Center. Piłsudski wanted a bloodless conflict, but the government refused to back down. 215 soldiers and 164 civilians were killed, and at least 900 wounded. On May 31st, Sejm elected Piłsudski as president of Poland. But Piłsudski, knowing that the president has very limited powers, declined the position. Another longtime friend of his, Ignacy Misiecki, was elected president to replace him. Piłsudski's official position is army commander, and it seems that the marshal also understands the truth of power from the barrel of a gun pointed present. Romania is too closely linked to Poland's economy. If Piłsudski has any other ideas, it will make Romania uncomfortable. Fortunately, his worries were unnecessary. Your Majesty, our ambassador talked to Piłsudski. Your Excellency the Marshal promised not to revise the Lobo Friendship Treaty, and at the same time he expressed his importance to the relationship with Romania. Now Edel is finally at ease with Poland. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533 Libyan Oil, Part 2. Edel's disregard for Libyan oil news does not mean that other countries don't take it seriously. When the news of the discovery of oil in Libya spread widely in Europe, Shell Oil, French Petroleum and other companies have expressed their desire to buy oil fields or take shares to IRO Oil Company. Especially when the Italian oil company continuously drilled several oil wells in Libya to increase the oil stock to 900 million tons. The expectations for these oil companies to take shares are even greater. Moreover, the British and French governments are also cooperating with the actions of the oil companies. If there is any hint in the media, the Italian oil company should have the capital of Britain and France. Facing the pressure exerted by Britain and France, His Excellency, the actual ruler of Italy, was extremely annoyed. These hateful British and French people, they can't see a little bit of Italy. They already have the whole world. Why are they still looking at this poorer source of Italy? The anger was not dissipated by Prime Minister Mussolini, venting his inner dissatisfaction in his office. Originally, Mussolini, who saw that Libya's oil resources were becoming more and more abundant, was dissatisfied with the too many shares of the Italian oil company. The National University is furious. Yes, Mussolini is not very satisfied with the shares currently owned by Italy in the Italian oil company. Of course, don't get me wrong, Romania is currently one of the few targets that it can win over. Of course, it is not dissatisfaction with its 25% stake, but rather dissatisfaction with Mobil, which stepped in and took away 20% of the shares. Dissatisfaction returns to dissatisfaction. Mussolini is a qualified politician and did not think about changing the share structure of oil companies. If an individual owns such a high stake in yellow, then accidental death is not impossible. But unfortunately, one is a country with similar strength as his own, and the other is a top consortium in the United States. These factors made him unable to move, and could only abide by the rules of the game. Prime Minister, do we need to speak to Britain and France? The secretary asked cautiously beside him. Who knew this sentence made Mussolini furious. What did you say? Did you agree to let them take the shares? The secretary, frightened by Mussolini, immediately shut up. Mussolini glanced at the frightened secretary and said lightly, Italo Oil is not only owned by one of us, but also sent a message to the other two to ask their opinion. Rooming Amnesty's secretary hurriedly nodded and left, and Mussolini watched the back of the secretary leave, but he wondered if he should be replaced. Since there are shares, no one should think that the Italian family can resist the pressure. When the Italian side sent the news of the British and French pressure to take a stake in the Italian oil company to Romania, Edel also knew. Why split the profits between Britain and France? Tell the Italians that petrol does not need to inject capital at the moment. Edel looked at the Prime Minister of Caraccioli, who came to him with a telegram and said his decision. However, this will cause Britain and France to be dissatisfied with our country, especially after my country's vigorous development of the shipbuilding industry. There will always be time delays in the ports exported by Britain and France to my country's goods. I'm afraid it will affect our export trade. Faced with the king's decision, the Prime Minister voiced his concerns. In fact, the problem is the same as the Prime Minister said. Although Britain and France had let go of the construction of battleships in Romania before, but then in other respects, Romania was suppressed. And Edel felt from it that the UK and France are now tying up Romania's development momentum, and the two countries are unwilling to have another powerful country in Europe. Will they conflict with our country's diplomacy for this? Facing Edel's question, the Prime Minister shook his head. That won't happen. Then what are you worried about? In Edel's view, Romania already has the strength to compete with Britain and France. Of course, in the Balkans, there is absolutely no need to pay too much attention to the attitude of Britain and France. However, on the one hand, the Prime Minister and others are out of habit, and on the other hand, they do not have enough knowledge of Romania's strength. It's like the motherland of later generations, which is already the second largest country in the world, but it doesn't know enough about itself, and always pays too much attention to the attitudes of certain countries. This is not good, and it is not easy to cultivate national self-confidence. National self-confidence is not just about how domestic development is going, but also needs to be shown to the public. To see your self-confidence. There are many people in Romania who are like the Prime Minister, and only a show of strength can make them sober. However, the current environment is not suitable for Romania to show its strength. After telling the Prime Minister of his attitude, Edel suddenly found his son flashing past the door. When he came out, he realized that this kid was sneakily holding something, as if he was going to do something bad. Victor, what are you doing? With a question. He was so frightened that he hurriedly threw the thing on the ground and ran away. Edel found that what he threw away was a cloth bag, and it still moved. As Romania's reply appeared on Mussolini's desk, the leader smiled at the telegram. He had already guessed that this was the result. However, in order to determine the Romanian idea, it is still sent to it. All he wants is an attitude. Because this can make Romania and Italy closer, because Romania will also find allies under the pressure of Britain and France. What is more suitable than Italy? In fact, Italy currently has poor relations with France and Yugoslavia, and the United Kingdom more or less secretly supports it in order to contain France. However, because Britain needs France to be more important than Italy, when it really wants to clarify the relationship, Italy is bound to be abandoned. Mussolini knew this well. So Italy needs a reliable ally, and his target is Romania. This time, taking advantage of the pressure from Britain and France, and not taking the opportunity to win over Romania. This is not a qualified politician. And Romania's reply made Mussolini very satisfied. This time, I have to pull Romania to resist the pressure of Britain and France, and the Italian people will not yield. As for Mobile's reply, there is no need to guess. Rockefeller, who was already dissatisfied with Britain and France's suppression of their market share in Europe, took the wrong medicine before agreeing to the British and French shares. And in order to appease the mood of Italy, Rockefeller even proposed that if Italy wants to issue government bonds in the United States, Chase Manhattan Bank can promise a line of $300 million. This can also be considered a compensation for not being able to support diplomatically. It has to be said that the Rockefeller family can become the top consortium in the United States, and the ability to observe words is also very outstanding. After receiving the support of the two major shareholders, Mussolini justly rejected the intention of Britain and France to take a stake in the Italian oil company, which naturally led to another diplomatic tear. The Italian side will say Romania's reply from time to time, as if Italy wants to listen to Romania's. This naturally allows Britain and France to put the two countries together. It was as Mussolini and Edel wished. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website. Chapter 534 Germany joins the League of Nations. Although there was a break in diplomacy, and even made a move against Romania in terms of trade import and export, in the end, the shares of Italian company remained unchanged. Because Romania exports less to Britain and France, it cannot be made to feel distressed. At best it can only be regarded as suffering minor losses at present. Romania's exports are mainly to Italy and Spain in southern Europe, Germany in Central Europe, Poland in Eastern Europe, and neighboring countries in the Balkans. For Anglo-French exports it is only a small share, and to put it bluntly, Romanian products are inferior to their own. As for the Far East and the Americas, the share is not large. Speaking of the Far East, Edel's new friend sent him a telegram. I hope to hire a retired general from Romania as my personal consultant. to help him in the military. Historically, he was a German lieutenant colonel, but now he is friends with Edel, so he naturally starts from acquaintances. In the face of this Far East request to meet new friends, Edel naturally could not refuse. Not to mention that the Far East has a large enough market. Various strategic resources alone cannot make Edel ignore the requirements of future leaders in the region. So Edel recruited the chief of the general staff, Admiral Ploiesti, and asked for a suitable candidate. I don't know, Your Majesty, what are your requirements for this? Fleet had no reason to disagree about sending a retired general to serve as a personal military advisor. He also has some understanding of the current situation in the Far East. This can be regarded as the top leader of the organization, helping his industry to expand Romania's influence in the region. And as far as he knows, the military industry in the Far East is poor and weak, and the demand for ordnance in this region is extremely large. Romania also produces German weapons that the region likes. In the future, selling weapons can also help the country's military industry. Therefore, Admiral Ploiesti naturally agreed with this, and the only request was to ask King Edel what requirements he had for the generals he sent, so that he could send retired generals according to the requirements. Because the generals also have different focuses on their abilities, some have a deep understanding of campaign command, some are proficient in scattered attacks by small units, and there are generals who are known for training soldiers and managing logistics. It all depends on what General Edel thinks is appropriate to send. After thinking about the habits of this Far Eastern friend, Edel said, being proficient in strategy and tactics, and able to give answers to military questions based on national conditions, and also need to handle interpersonal relationships well. Even if the plan is rejected, he can quickly come up with a new plan. Edel's words made Ploiesti's mouth dry. This is where he chooses a personal advisor, but a chief of staff. So he couldn't help but say, Your Majesty, according to your request, only I and Marshal Ploiesti are suitable candidates. Listening to the words of the chief of staff, Edel realized that his demands were too high. However, he sincerely hopes to enhance the military strength of the motherland in later generations, so that it can retain more strength in the future catastrophe. Although he knows that this party has many problems, the suffering people are innocent. Then there are enough generals who are proficient in strategy and tactics, and have good interpersonal relationships. Edel lowered his requirements, and he attached great importance to the interpersonal relationship. Doing it well will not only expand Romania's influence, but it will also benefit the country, like the future General von Sickert, and vice versa. General Stilwell. This time, Edel lowered his requirements, which made it easier for Ploiesti. He was making a choice in his mind. First of all, the rank should not be too high, so as not to attract too much attention. Those generals and lieutenants can be excluded. Then you need to look for major generals, and it is really hard to find major generals who meet Edel's requirements, and who have to retire from active service. Suddenly he thought of it, and a person's name flashed quickly in his mind. The former 18 Division Commander Major General Modok. The Major General had fought in the Balkan Wars and World War I before, and he performed well. Originally, there was still hope for a promotion, but later he retired from active duty due to physical reasons, and then under the careful convalescence of the family recovered. When did Admiral Ploiesti plan to call him back into the army? But now he needs the general as a personal advisor, and that's him. Major General Modok, the former commander of the 18th Division, meets His Majesty's requirements. Edel seemed to have some impressions in the face of the name mentioned by Ploiesti. Then it was decided that it was him. Major General Modok, who was full of returning to the army, was sent to the Far East like this. After sending Ploiesti away, the captain of the guard, Hurriah, hurried in with a telegram. Your Majesty, urgent telegram from Geneva. Edel took a look at the telegram, and saw that the League of Nations had just made a resolution that Germany was allowed to join the League of Nations. Perhaps people in the future will scoff at this international alliance, because after the outbreak of the anti-Japanese war, Japan used to wipe its ass when the League of Nations made unfavorable resolutions. This needs to be explained, because Britain and France have limited military intervention capabilities in the Far East, and the relationship between Nanjing and Britain and France was not too friendly at that time, and Britain and France were greatly damaged by the world economic crisis. Didn't I see that the Italian leader had to wait until the 1930s to do something in Ethiopia? At present, Britain and France, which dominate the League of Nations, are more powerful in Europe, so joining the League of Nations is also the most critical step for Germany to emerge from the status of a defeated country and become a normal country. But this step is not good at all. In 1920, Switzerland and Argentina first proposed to let Germany join the League of Nations at the first meeting of the League of Nations, but it was rejected by France. The reason is that the League of Nations was established on the premise that the whole of Europe paid a huge price, and Germany, as a defeated country, could not become a member of the League of Nations. Moreover, the diplomatic structure at that time was very unfavorable for Germany, and the resistance of Germany to join the League of Nations was beyond imagination. The situation was relieved by the establishment of diplomatic relations between Germany and the Soviet Union on the eve of the Genoa Conference, because Britain and France discovered that not allowing Germany to join would pull it into the arms of the Soviets. At this time, except for France, other countries' attitudes towards Germany's joining the League of Nations changed. When the Ruhr crisis broke out, France suffered heavy diplomatic losses, and Germany received a large number of sympathetic voices in its diplomacy. This gave Germany an excellent environment for joining the League of Nations. However, the obstruction from France still cannot be ignored. Finally, in 1926, in order to cooperate with the smooth implementation of the Dawes Plan, the League of Nations made a decision to let Germany join. In the final analysis, Britain and France want to use the carrot of returning Germany to become a normal country so that Germany can continue to pay the reparations. However, Germany, which will gradually regain its strength in the future, will allow Britain and France to steal chickens without losing money. And the reason for all this, in the final analysis, is its money trouble. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, chapter 535, The Latent Carol Morley. Time flies, and it soon comes to 1927. In this era of drastic changes in China, everything in Romania seems so peaceful and peaceful. In the small town of Spakov, 25 kilometers southeast of Vinitsa, there lived a family. The male owner was Dokov, a personable and elegant person, who was a teacher in the town school. Anyone in the town who has difficulty looking for him for help is also willing to help those who suffer from his small salary. So this Mr. Dokov has a very good reputation in the town. And this Mr. Dokov doesn't have many hobbies, and occasionally going out to hunt can be regarded as his hobby. So in the face of a benevolent person, no one doesn't like it. Today, Dokov is walking down the road wearing hunting gear and holding a hunting weapon. Mr. Dokov, are you going hunting today? A woman who was busy with farm work in the field greeted loudly. Yes, Ms. Monaco. I'm here to try my luck while I'm free. Dokov's answer made the working woman straighten her bucket-like waist and said cheerfully, Mr. Dokov really can talk. I can't be called a lady. The husband who was working with the aunt said at this time, the animals are hungry in spring, so hunting at this time can be dangerous. I don't necessarily have to hit the prey. I mainly want to relax. After Dokov explained, he patted his shotgun. I have this, but there is no danger. After seeing Dokov pointing his shotgun and saying that he was not afraid of danger, the farmer did not speak. After Dokov had dealt with the people at work, he walked along the path into the wilderness. Along the way, he observed the movements around him like a hunter, as if he wanted to find the traces of his prey. Going forward in the wilderness is a physical task. While you need to clear the hunted trail covered by weeds, you need to observe the surrounding movement. When Dokov walked to a grove in the wilderness, he finally breathed a sigh of relief when he was a little tired. At this time, a figure appeared in the dense forest. Dokov asked after seeing the figure clearly. Are all comrades here? It's all here, just waiting for you. General Secretary. That's right. This Dokov is Karol Morley, General Secretary of the Romanian Communist Party. No one thought that the General Secretary of the Romanian Communist Party would hide in the countryside and teach. And the grove in front of them was the stronghold of their secret gathering. When Karol Morley pushed open the door of the cabin in the woods, nearly 10 high-ranking Communist Party leaders in the house all stood up. General Secretary, you are here. General Secretary, Karol Morley shook hands with these revolutionary cadres who still adhered to their beliefs. Everyone has worked hard. I feel ashamed to let everyone come to this remote village To accommodate me alone. Don't say that, General Secretary. We all know the danger of the current white terrorist reign. Putting the meeting here is also to ensure the safety of the meeting. The person who stood up and spoke was Silvato, the head of the Transylvania region. He joined the organization shortly after the founding of the party. He was appointed because of his outstanding ability and the influence of his family in the Transylvania region for the leaders of the region. Under his leadership, the number of party members in Transylvania has grown significantly. From 127 people he took over to 418 at present. It needs to be explained here that Silvato is Hungarian, and 38% of the members of the current party organization there are also Hungarian. Okay, we won't talk about polite words. Tell me what tasks the organization needs to do in the new year. With Karol Morley's words falling, it marked the beginning of the annual meeting of the Romanian Communist Party. Let me come first. The speaker was a man dressed as a worker, whose name was Bogat, the leader of the Wallachia region. At present, the kingdom spies have not relaxed their pursuit of us. We also need to be among the workers to propagate ideas. And many comrades have already been arrested. Among them, there are also traitors. At present, the party organization has suffered a lot in the local area. Is it possible to consider more covert propaganda? Bogat's words attracted many people who felt the same way. Last month, I was betrayed by a traitor. Fortunately, a comrade broke into the enemy's interior and risked his life to deliver the news. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to stand here and have a meeting with everyone. It's a pity that this comrade was secretly arrested by the enemy. It's the same on my side. Grassroots organizations have been continuously sabotaged by the secret police, and many comrades have been arrested. Watching the situation slide in the direction of complaining, some people are not happy. I saw Dokaya, the leader of the Krishana region, stand up and accuse them angrily. I think you are scared. The fact that the party organization is being swept away by these secret policemen shows that they are afraid of our party. We must show our determination not to submit to the rule of the evil government, and vow to fight the other party to the end. We let the vast number of compatriots in the country see the hateful faces of these ruling classes. As the only woman who attended the meeting, Dokar was the toughest member of the organization. And Krishana, where she is located, is also the area where the struggle is most intense. It should be noted here that the Krishana region is the name of the vast area west of the Transylvania region to the Tisza River, because there are more Hungarians in the area than Transylvania. Dokaya, who is the most violent, is kept. These Hungarians have no identity with the Romanian government that oppresses them. And Dokaya's words seemed to have stabbed a hornet's nest and immediately incurred a counterattack. Do you think that every region is like yours, attacking officials and police to destroy phone lines? If we did this, we would have been caught by the secret police long ago. We need the support of the people, not hostility. It really doesn't hurt to talk. Can it be the same everywhere? The words of the counterattack filled Doka's eyes with anger, and just when she was about to attack, a voice calmed all the quarrels. Okay, listen to me. He stopped Karol Morley, who might have a violent dispute, and said in his calm tone, I know that you have some complaints about the unsmooth development of the organization in recent years. However, we must also see that our organization is still developing slowly even under the frantic sweep of the secret police. Of course, the situation in different places is different, so the speed of development is slow. There are differences. But our slow growth as an organization is beneficial in another way. When the people present heard General Secretary Karol Morley's words, they couldn't help but wonder, what is the benefit of slow development? He only said, after seeing his words and everyone's attention. This also shows that our organization has been tested. At present, everyone who joins the party is a steadfast comrade and the seed of our future. So we not only have our own hopes, but also carry the expectations of our comrades. Therefore, over the course of the year, we need to continue to grow the organization and make us known to more people, while also transforming it into our comrades. This is the responsibility of us communists. We are not fighting for ourselves, but for this country and the people. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, chapter 536, The Sea Monster of the Shipyard. the Communist Party's secret gathering. Edel did not know point however. He believes that, as long as Romania develops well, and the people live and work in peace and contentment, the Communist Party, which is engaged in trouble and reign, will not be able to achieve anything. And these years of propaganda have also made everyone aware of Romania's territorial disputes with the Soviet Union, and many people hate this party as the Soviet Union's tentacles. To disrupt Romania. This party wants to grow and develop, unless there is turmoil in Romania, and it can only be occupied by the Soviet Union, if it wants to govern. So Edel didn't pay much attention to its threat point. In order to have an intuitive feeling of Romania's development, Edel once again started the inspection work. And his choice to inspect in Varna this time is also a manifestation of the importance he attaches to the Navy. Your Majesty, this is the battleship Mercia. In front of Edel, Admiral Lomatin, Minister of the Navy, was introducing the battleship under construction. Not bad. At present, the construction progress of the battleship Mercia is only 29%. At present, the hull is still not completed, and the scaffolding has also blocked its true appearance, but Edel can still see its majesty. By the way, how is the development of the main gun going? Edel thought of something and couldn't help but ask. Your Majesty, the weapons researchers from the 3 countries of Droice are currently working on the development of the 380mm main gun at the Lviv artillery factory. I believe they will be able to complete their work on the schedule. Let Edel inquire about the development of the main gun, mainly because he saw a development accident in a report before. The accident that killed a German and 2 Italian researchers, and seriously injured nearly 10 Romanian researchers, made him very concerned about it. And this accident also made the face of Lieutenant General Lomatin dull. In fact, when the German pre-research work on the 380mm artillery was carried out on the Mackensen class battle cruiser, there was a plan for installing the 380mm main gun. In the end, however, Germany chose the 350 caliber. After the First World War, the Italian side also carried out 380mm research and development in the face of the 380 main guns of the latest battleships of various countries, but the economic drag caused the project to be cut off later. The main gun research and development this time is completely based on the experience and technology of the 3 kingdoms, so the accident is excusable. Edel ignored the embarrassed look on Lieutenant General Lomatin's face and continued. The safety of the research needs to be guaranteed. The main artillery research this time is very beneficial to the 3 countries. I hope the next research work will go smoothly. There is no need for a hammer to ring the drum, and Edel's words made Lieutenant General Lomatin feel the pressure. I saw him answer seriously. Please rest assured, Your Majesty, since the R/U-0026D accident occurred, I have ordered that sufficient guarantees be ensured in terms of safety. Edel also believed his words. Because this battleship was promoted by Lieutenant General Lomatin, I believe that there will be no slack in specific things. Edel looked at the busy workers on the huge ship in the dock and asked with concern. Is the supply of shipbuilding materials going smoothly? It went very smoothly. The Romanian Steel Company delivered steel plates and various parts on time and quantity every month. In addition, the shipyard also built a large gate workshop to ensure the progress, and the marine gas welding technology we imported from Germany is also powerful to ensure the normal construction of the ship. That's good. Of course, we don't necessarily need to use all new technologies. After all, new technologies will also bring in stability, and what warships need most is stability and practicality. After Edel finished speaking, he left dock number 3 where the battleship was being built, because the progress was too low to see its majestic hull. And Lieutenant General Lomatin obviously also took this into account, so he took Edel to another dock, where the heavy cruiser Brebisa under construction was nearing completion, just right for His Majesty's inspection. In the adjacent number 5 dock, a sea monster is lying quietly in the dock, and its 4 towering 203 naval guns tell the world its power. This boat is much better. Edel boarded the Brebisa, which was about to be completed, and intuitively felt the charm of the cannon ship. Although he notes that the future is the world of aircraft carriers, which man can resist the charm of fighting cannons face to face at sea. Moreover, in the narrow Black Sea, the power of the cannon and giant ships has been amplified, which is why Edel is willing to build these sea giants. Even in the future World War II, battleships still have an irreplaceable role, especially in the future Mediterranean. Your Majesty, this is my country's newly developed 203 caliber 45 times naval gun. Its bomb weighs 126 kilograms, has a maximum range of 21.7 kilometers, and has a high and low firing rate of -5-35 degrees. It can penetrate all the heavy duty known in the world. A cruiser, and at 34 knots it can escape all battle cruisers. A very suitable ship for Romania. Lieutenant General Lomaden's words obviously bullied Edel's ignorance of the Navy. What does it mean to penetrate all heavy cruisers? At present, none of the heavy cruisers can resist the attack of 203mm and 45 times the naval gun. The 10,000-ton heavy cruiser is a thin-skinned, fast, and powerful route. If you want to achieve the perfect combination of fire protection and speed, unless you learn what kind of monster the Fuhrer comes up with in the Admiral Hipper class. However, that is a serious excess, and Romania does not dare to be so blatant at the moment. Nice. Edel did not point out the rhetorical hyperbole in Lieutenant General Lomaden's words. After all, the Navy has been poor for a long time, and it is not easy to encounter Edel merciful to allocate so much funds to enhance the strength of the Navy. If you don't take the opportunity to show it to him, do you have to wait until you regret it before showing your merit? By the way, has the configuration of officers and soldiers been resolved? Edel suddenly thought of staffing issues. A warship cannot be without operators, Your Majesty. 643 sailors and 68 officers have been prepared for a long time. They already know all the data of the Brebisser, and they will be seaworthy after the ship is launched. Good. You've worked hard. Edel's praise made Lieutenant General Lomaden reply immediately. Everything is for the kingdom, and the Navy is willing to meet any incoming enemy for the benefit of the country. The words of Lieutenant General Lomaden caused Edel to laugh. It's not so formal. No one can threaten the safety of Romania at the moment. Edel continued to talk while watching the busy construction of the Mercia not far away. The number of new warships currently in service in the Navy is gradually increasing. You need to ensure that they can exert their full strength. This is also a test for your Navy. Edel's words were a spur to Lieutenant Admiral Lomaden, and the naval butler replied, Your Majesty, please rest assured. In recent years, the number of applicants for the Naval Academy has increased year by year, especially the construction of the battleship Mercia last year, which has brought the number of applicants to a new high. The Navy is full of questions about the staffing of new warships. Confidence. That's fine. Edel looked at the busy scene in the Navy yard and said he is more confident than anyone about Romania's future because he knows where the winning message is. However, Romania's current strength is still a little short, but fortunately there is enough time to catch up. Please remember this book's first domain name. Mobile version reading website, Chapter 537 Agricultural Reform. 1. Your Majesty, this is information from the Soviet Union. Just after returning to Edel in Bucharest, he saw Horia, the captain of the guard, rushing in with a telegram. Edel attached great importance to the Soviet Union, a lifelong enemy, so he immediately took over the telegram and read it. This is the news that the Soviet Union decided to carry out the first 5-year plan. At this time, there is no precedent for such detailed planning and construction in the world, but the Soviets saw the precedent. In fact, the industrialization implemented by Edel in Romania has some shadows of this kind of plan. However, Romania does not have the super high execution power of the Soviet Union, and it cannot achieve the strict ability to execute according to the schedule. Edel can only carry out guided development in Romania, and at most, introduce preferential policies to lure capital to the industry. The Soviet Union's 5-year plan in front of Edel is to deal with the construction of heavy industries related to national strength, such as automobiles, aircraft manufacturing, chemical synthesis, and large-scale machinery and equipment manufacturing. And in this 5-year plan, Edel also saw the goal of building collective farms. Edel is not unfamiliar with the word collective farm. In his previous life, his family was from a rural area, so he could clearly understand its essence. This is just a quick way to use the scissors difference between workers and peasants to harvest farmers' income and subsidize industrial construction. And the Soviet Union's agricultural reform was not based on tender feelings, but was based on sucking the blood of peasants. The attitude of the Asian Federation towards farmers can be seen from the machine gun grain collection team. In the future, the farmers of the Soviet Union will suffer, however. Although the way of doing things makes people uncomfortable, it has to be said that the speed of industrial development in the Soviet Union is also very fast. In less than 5 years, it has transformed its semi-industrial and semi-agricultural country into an industrial country that has begun to take shape. Despite all the problems, this speed of development is unprecedented in history, which is also the scary part of the Soviet model. Thinking of its terrible development speed, Edel felt a deep pressure. It seems that Romania also needs to make a plan. Certainly not to destroy the development of the Soviet Union, unless Romania has the idea of perishing with it. A large-scale war broke out with the Soviet Union. Edel didn't think about it this way during his civil war, nor did he think about it now. Now that the Soviet Union is developing rapidly, Romania cannot relax. Not to catch up, but not to fall too far. Edel thought of this, and immediately called Prime Minister Carachari to discuss Romania's economic development. There is a problem that cannot be delayed. Your Majesty, do you want to reform agriculture? When Carachari arrived at the palace, he was amazed when he heard Edel's plan. Can't help Carachari not marvel, because this time Edel intends to deepen Romania's mechanized farming, liberate more labor into the city, and speed up Romania's industrialization. Of course, Edel did not intend to achieve the mechanized farming model of large farms in the United States. Instead, it was decided to use the road of industrialized agriculture according to local conditions in later generations. The industrialized agriculture of the motherland appeared in the news and newspapers from time to time, and Edel believed that it was just a sublimated version of the intensive and meticulous cultivation of the East. If the political dignitaries are changed to industrialization, they will not need so many farmers in the country, and 100 or 200 million will be enough. But in that case, it will be a disaster for the country. Too many farmers entering the city will overwhelm the country's facilities and public welfare agencies. And the influx of too many people into the city will also increase the burden on the city, and there are not enough jobs to provide. Of course, these problems for the motherland of later generations do not exist at all in Romania. On the land of nearly 500,000 square kilometers, the plain terrain occupies 43%, then the hilly terrain occupies 28%, and the mountainous terrain occupies 29%. The vast plains gave Romania enough arable land, and the current Romanian population has just exceeded 30 million. Early 1927 data, it can be said that the industrialized population in Romania is still not enough, which makes many problems for migrant workers in Romania. Of course, every country has nationalism, especially when the national power is rising rapidly. This problem is the most serious. For example, South Korea, Japan. Fortunately, domestic public opinion has been guiding these ethnic sentiments, so that they do not focus on these foreigners who come to work. This time, stimulated by the Soviet Union's 5-year plan, Edel decided to start with Romania's pillar agriculture. Don't look at Romania's agriculture on weekdays, but the weight of agriculture in Romania is not low. Renowned as the second grain exporter in Europe, and climbed to number 1 for a while. This title alone speaks to Romania's agricultural roots. However, although Romania is very famous as a big grain exporting country, Romanian agriculture is still far behind the developed regions of Western Europe. This is under the premise that Edel promotes mechanized farming in China. As for the newly seized territories such as Western Ukraine, livestock farming is still the mainstay, and the nature of Romanian agriculture, which is large but not strong, has not changed. And now, Edel thinks it's time to change the structure of agricultural production. So in the face of the Prime Minister's inquiry, Edel answered firmly, "That's right. I plan to upgrade agriculture. There is still a lot of livestock farming in Romania, which restricts too many people to the countryside. Now is the time for great development in industry, and these people can't be involved in the land like this." Although Carachari has always been involved in industry, it does not mean that he does not know much about agriculture, especially after he became prime minister. He needs to know more or less about the situation of all walks of life in the country. So he couldn't help but say, "Your Majesty, the current agricultural reforms in the old territories are good, but the new territories may be difficult to handle. especially in the former Russian territories. There are still some Russian serf-like styles there. Although they have joined our country, there the serf culture has faded a lot, but once there is no guarantee that there will be no opposition in the area. After hearing the Prime Minister's concerns, Edel replied indifferently. What are they dissatisfied with? Do they still want to go back to Russia? Tsarist Russia has become history, and there is only the Red Soviet Union. Do these people dare to go to the Soviet Union? You must know that the collectivized farms in the Soviet Union are a big pit that can kill those peasants in the Soviet Union. Kirachari heard the monarch's determination from Edel's words, which is to sacrifice the landowners of the original Russian territory, but also to upgrade agriculture. Perhaps these beneficiaries will endure temporary pain after seeing the scene of Romanian inland agriculture. Otherwise, what else can these people do? To vote for Russia is still towards independence. No one in the surrounding countries wants to see the Ukrainians have the idea of independence, and then it will be suppressed by several countries. Your Majesty, I will go back to discuss with other ministers and come up with a feasible plan as soon as possible. Looking at the departing Prime Minister, Edel wanted to see if these former Russian residents were patriots. Chapter 538 Agricultural Reform 2. It didn't take long for the bill on deepening agricultural reform to be issued nationwide, signed by Prime Minister Kirachari with Edel's consent. This bill mainly focuses on several points. The first is to subsidize the purchase of modern agricultural machinery, which is 5% minus 15% of the price. Second, encourage farmers to enter the city. The government will train new farmers in cities so that they can find jobs in cities more quickly. Third, speed up the industrialization reform of agriculture and make Romanian agriculture more adaptable to modernization. The first point and the third point are okay to say, but the second point is aimed at the actual beneficiaries of these lands. Therefore, after the promulgation of the bill, there was a lot of commotion in the former Russian territory. The government's bills are meant to increase spending for these land beneficiaries. No one will feel bad about the money, so private tandem is going on. As a famous figure in western Ukraine, many people came to Murakov's family. As the prime minister of the short-lived Ukrainian government, Murakov, who also served as a minister in the Romanian government, returned to his hometown in Vinnytsia because he did not want to continue to serve in the government. When he returned to his hometown, he was also very influential in the local area, and the mayor and other dignitaries also visited his home from time to time. So these people want to find a leader who can convince the public, and naturally they find him. Mr. Murakov, the government is trying to force us to a dead end. Those mud legs were a little restless before, but now the introduction of this bill has made them even more restless. During this period of time, there have been 10 people on my island. Many households abandoned the land and moved away. If things go on like this, no one will grow food on the land. If there is no food in the country, there will be no famine. This is a big event. Mr. Murakov, you are a capable person. We must make it clear to the government about the dangers involved. A well-dressed fat man was speaking in front of Murakov about the dangers of the bill. At this moment, he was like a senior patriot, and he was worried and shouted from his heart for the possibility of endangering national security. If it wasn't for Murakov's familiarity with this man, he might have been fine. This Mr. Nabokov has a large land in the southwest of Vinnytsia. The big landowner can earn millions of lei just by selling grain, which is much more nourishing than those busy factory owners. So big and fat. And Rabkov's words drew other people's approval. My family is the same. There are still several farmers who have moved away. The day before yesterday, I went to the city and saw a farmer who used to work in my house. He dared not even say hello to me. These muddy legs are so rude. My family is not the same. Now these working farmers are just like uncles. If the Tsar is still around, I won't give him a whip. This sentence made the scene quiet for a while. The Tsarist Russia period is a taboo topic in what is now Western Ukraine. They came to figure out a way out, not to protest against the government. Don't look at the current Bucharest government and its kindness. You must know that for them, everything can be talked about is not to talk about the era of Tsarist Russia. And that era is long gone, and it will never come back. And Murakov's face immediately became unpleasant when he heard this remark. Just when he was about to attack, someone suddenly cursed. "Pa Merkel, are you drinking too much vodka?" Stop talking nonsense. Mr. Merkel, who knew he was wrong, quickly took over the words. I'm sorry, I drank 2 more drinks on the road today, and people are a little awake. I don't know if you are here to visit Mr. Morakov, but you are still drinking on the way. Yeah, too disrespectful to Morakov. In the denunciation of everyone, the Merkel's remarks changed from dissatisfaction with the government to disrespect for Morakov. It seems that Mr. Merkel is well liked. As for the owner of the place, Morakov, he watched from the sidelines, watching the end of this farce. I know your difficulties, but you must also consider the difficulties of the government. After hearing Morakov begin to speak, everyone present fell silent. I also know that everyone has suffered losses because of this bill. In fact, I'm the same. But you must also see that restricting farmers to the land is not in line with the development of the times, Morakov said, while observing the expressions of these people. Seeing that many people were still a little unconvinced, he continued. I don't know if you have been to Western Europe and other places to see the farming there. Seeing that no one answered, he knew that even if these people went, they would probably linger in the bustling big city, so he had to continue talking. The land in Western Europe is actually more scattered than us, but its agriculture uses more machinery than us. In the old territory of the government, the use of agricultural machinery is also very frequent. I have carefully calculated before, the use of agricultural machinery is more than the use of agricultural machinery. Powered manpower farming is more cost effective because its work efficiency is much higher. Why don't we take this opportunity to purchase agricultural machinery to replace power storage and manpower, but it will cost a lot of money. The previous government's old territories were replaced mainly by making a lot of money from grain exports during the war. Morakov wasn't angry when someone interjected. Don't let you make money first, so you won't be able to switch to mechanical farming. After he finished speaking, he began to take stock of the family assets of the people present. As far as I know, Mr. Nabokov's annual income from selling grain is millions of lei. Don't you have enough money to exchange for mechanical farming? Rabkov, who was named by him, said a little embarrassedly. It usually costs a lot, and it's still a bit difficult to replace it with mechanical farming. I can't see it. You buy less expensive daily necessities. I believe you have enough money to replace them with machinery for farming. Also, you are nice to those farmers, and they won't move out so quickly. In the face of Morakov's ruthless pointing out his own problems, Nabokov could only play stupid. Even though we bought those agricultural machinery, we didn't know how to use it. Someone interjected excitedly. I got the news that the government will send special personnel to each city and county for guidance. You just need to send smart people to learn. As for how to farm, sow and harvest, I don't think any of you here would like to go there in person. Do it. Morakov's words caused everyone to laugh. Everyone is a decent person, and the rude work of plowing the fields is just left to those muddy legs. They have more important things to do. Morakov dismissed the intentions of these people in a few words, but he did not intend to give up this opportunity. In his view, this agricultural reform bill is an opportunity for the family to flourish. I saw Morakov continue to speak. I wonder if everyone has noticed the word industrialization in the bill. When the people present look at me, and I look at your expression, it means they don't pay attention to it. It had to be explained by him. Industrialization, which means that the state's support for agricultural development will also focus on the market and economic benefits. That is to say, everyone needs to make more money. The word making money immediately attracted everyone's interest, and I saw someone asking, so what can we do to industrialize it? Morakov just waited for this sentence, only to see him explain. First of all, we need to unite and implement large-scale specialization in agricultural production. Our previous model of handing over land to farmers is not suitable for industrialization. In the future, we need to hire well-known agricultural experts and scholars to provide targeted guidance on land use, farming production. This is industrialization. He didn't say a word. That is, these big landlords unite, and other farmers have no way to compete with them, and can only eat their leftover residue. Even if they were a little cruel, these yeoman farmers couldn't even eat the scraps, and of course, with his reputation, he wouldn't do such a dishonoring thing. None of the people present were stupid. They knew that, since Morakov proposed it, he naturally wanted to lead the matter. But he was the only one who was famous and convincing the audience. So after a quiet discussion, someone spoke. I propose that Morakov lead us to implement this industrialization. I agree. I reconsider. Seeing that things were developing smoothly as he expected, Morakov did not refuse. Since everyone agrees, let's discuss how much land each family will use to do this. But let's talk about it first. It's not bad to spend a lot of money on this. Everyone thinks about it before making a decision. So a group of people started to discuss how much land to take out to implement industrialization. In the end, the land operators in Vinnytsia took out a total of 6,428 hectares of land to implement this industrialization, which is quite a lot. You must know that the first time was just a test. On the other hand, these people are big landlords. Chapter 539 Land Reform 3. Agrarian reform in Romania affected not only those landlords and peasants, but also the industrial side. As the largest manufacturer of agricultural machinery and tanks in Romania, the Ploiesti machinery plant has been relatively busy during this time, and even Sodovil, the deputy director, is just as busy without touching the ground. I came home very late again today, but fortunately his home is not far from the factory. When he dragged his exhausted body open the door, his wife Hestina was still waiting for him to come home. Honey, it's so late again today. His wife, Hestina, complained that he came home too late. No way, you know that the factory has been busy lately. Is Doral asleep? After taking his coat and hanging it on the hanger, the wife turned around and replied, be quiet, I just fell asleep. If I wake him up, it will take another half a night. Then Hestina asked him with concern, have you had dinner? There are smoked sausages and fish at home, and I have saved some mushroom and potato soup for you. His wife's words filled Sodovil with warmth. After all these years, the two of them are still in love as before, and he also has the help of his father-in-law, the first director of the factory Podosloku, when he became the deputy factory manager. Although he became the deputy factory manager after his father-in-law retired. As an inspirational benchmark for little people, Sodovil is a classic case of marrying Bafumi and reaching the pinnacle of life. Why is he not satisfied? Sodovil couldn't help but tell his wife the good news. You know that our factory is going to build a branch in Lviv. How can I not know this? I heard that the design capacity of the branch factory is higher than that of the old factory, and all of them use new technologies. Sodovil was very satisfied with his wife's answer, and he said with a smile as he wrapped his arms around his wife's waist, that's right. The candidate for the new factory manager has not been determined before, but now there is news. Seeing her husband smile, Hestina said suddenly, could this be you? Yes, we'll be moving to Lviv soon. It's really good news and something to celebrate. Hestina said, took out a bottle of red wine, poured 2 glasses, and handed a glass to her husband. Come, toast to the good news. Sodovil, who drank the red wine, pulled his wife, and said, the construction of the new factory and the integration of equipment control personnel need to be handled by me as the factory manager. So I plan to ask my father for help. What do you think? Of course what Sodovil was talking about was his retired father-in-law, Putosraku, and his wife obviously understood what he said. This shouldn't be a problem. Since my father retired, he has nothing to do. I believe you will be very happy to invite him out this time. Hestina was worthy of being a wife, and she did not hesitate to sell her father. After a night of silence, Sodovil encountered a problem. As soon as he arrived at the machinery factory the next morning. Why was the list changed? Many of the names above have only been in the factory for 1 to 2 years. How can they be the backbone of the new factory? In the factory director's office, Sodovil was questioning factory director Uriel with a list. Speaking of which, he was very unhappy. The people who were preparing for the new factory had already negotiated it a long time ago, but he didn't expect to find out, when he went to work today, that many of the people on the list had been replaced. The backbone elites who have worked for more than 10 years have been replaced by rookies who have only been in the factory for a year or 2, which makes him bring them to the new factory to start work as soon as possible. In the face of Sodovil's question, the factory director of Uriel was not angry, but he said soothingly, don't be angry. I know you are a little dissatisfied with the replacement of many people on the list, but you have to think about it for the factory. The production task is so heavy at present. If I transfer all these veterans to you, you should not be able to complete the task. What should I do? You can go to the new factory, but we will be held accountable by our superiors. And didn't you say that when the task is completed, I will transfer these people to you? I promise that there will be no problems with your new factory. Edel was not happy with the face-to-face reassurance of the factory manager. But there are so many production tasks, so how long will the poor wait? At present, the government's supplementary offer has greatly increased our tasks, and the factory is almost too busy to touch the ground. I can't let me wait for 3 or 5 years, that way. If so, all my staff have been trained. Won't point as for Uriel's words. The factory manager, Uriel shook his head and answered. It's okay for a year at most. This is a last bottom line. It can't be lower. It's all for the country. Uriel's words let Edel know that this is the last condition, and it is impossible to continue to lower. And in order to draw people from the factory, he didn't dare to fall out with them. So he could only accept the result helplessly, and left in a daze. After Edel walked away, Uriel snorted coldly. It's not easy. Naturally, the candidate he proposed was rejected by the above, so he made these small moves. I saw that this person was a little bit of a chicken, but I didn't expect to do such a tasteless thing. The retired father-in-law told Edel the reason for his problems. Father, I know why. But he did this to make it more difficult for me to take over the new factory. It's just unreasonable for a little bit of moral point in the face of his father-in-law's words. Edel, who was still a little indignant, couldn't let his anger go away. What kind of difficulty is this? I think it was difficult when I was the director of the factory. Except for your group of people supported by the public, the others are all new recruits. So the factory has grown and developed. That's different. The scale of the factory at that time was only large. The production capacity of the new factory design is much higher than that of the old factory. If it weren't for my ability, and with your help from my father, I wouldn't be able to compete for this position. Under the premise of pointing out that his father-in-law's era was different, Edel still did not forget to pat his ass. Why is it different? Is it because the production steps have been changed, or a new technological process has been re-established? It was clear that Puto was not satisfied with the words of his son-in-law. Not really. But what? Isn't it the same production of tracked vehicles? You are just too cautious, afraid of showing your manliness. Isn't it because there are fewer skilled hands, and when you arrive at the new factory, you will step up training? No man can be overwhelmed by difficulties unless he himself is afraid. Seeing that her husband couldn't hold his head up because of what her father said, Hestina quickly helped. Father, it's really difficult for Edel this time. As the new director, if he doesn't do well, he might be dismissed. You must help him this time. Facing his daughter's words, Podosriku asked meaningfully, what do you want me to do? Of course it's better to go to Lviv with us and teach him how to do it. The daughter's words caused Puto to laugh. I knew you'd say that. You're my only child. Edel is my only son-in-law, and I don't help anyone who helps him. His father's answer made Hestina happily hug his shoulders. I knew my father was the best for me. Edel looked at the happy family and breathed a sigh of relief. Let my father-in-law help with this. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540, Bashkirskaya Bayo Rebellion, Part 1. The land bill has also caused an uproar in Romania. Whether it is accepted or resisted, the government's determination to advance this bill will not change anyway. Smart people naturally find business opportunities in it, while stupid people choose to fight against the government. In the Krasana region, close to Hungary, a group of people also made different choices. This is to push us to a dead end, and the Romanian government knows to oppress us Hungarians. At a local secret meeting, a Hungarian landowner loudly denounced the government's injustice. When he spoke, many people showed the same feeling. In recent years, the Romanian government has not been very good to them as Hungarians. Whether it is education, medical care or transportation, the places where they are mostly in Hungary are always ranked last. Not only that, but Hungarian children also have to learn Latin at school, as well as the official Romanian language of the country. And for the previous history, the newspaper broadcasts also told about the oppression of other ethnic groups in the past. Although it was said that this was the decision of the Budapest government, it still made other ethnic groups have a mentality of rejecting them. Originally, they still had expectations for the Hungarian government, but the lack of strength of the Budapest government made them quite disappointed. So in the face of the Romanian government, they can only swallow. These overt and covert rejections broke their hearts, and many people couldn't bear it, and fled to Hungary one after another. But this is okay for other people who don't care, but not for those who have a family. They can't take away the land, factories and other properties, and there is a group of special people in Crișana who buy their properties, and the asking price is extremely low, which makes them completely unacceptable. The issue of the land bill this time is nothing but a general outburst of dissatisfaction among oppressed Hungarians, who have had enough of the government's endless oppression, and this time they have to stand up and express their dissatisfaction. And the newly promulgated land bill made them, who had long been complaining, finally couldn't bear it anymore. So there was this secret meeting. That's right, we can't keep our mouths shut. We want the world to know about Romania's oppression of us. If we don't fight, the government is going to get an inch. Inspirational words made the atmosphere of the scene instantly high. We have to fight, not humiliate. We have to withstand earthquakes, not humiliation. When everyone was shouting for this, an old man with a grey beard stood on the high platform and waved to signal everyone to be quiet. This guy everyone knew. His name was Ploiesti, and he was a very famous guy in the whole area. This highly respected old man stood on the stage and watched everyone talk. Everyone, I know how you want to fight, but here I need to remind everyone that we must fight peacefully and we must not take drastic actions, because our purpose is to let the world notice what happened to us Hungarians. Injustice, not a rebellion, because this will only give the government a pretext for all Hungarians to suffer. For the old man's words made those present think deeply. Of course they have no determination to riot, because they just want to demand fair treatment and do not want to be violently suppressed by the government. Ploiesti also supports the protests, but he is most worried about an accident that will lead to a riot. You must know that protests and riots are two treatments. One is legal and can meet their demands, and the other is illegal and will also lead to repression. And their Hungarians are a minority in Romania, and it would be worth a loss if they arouse the disgust of others. And his reminder also made those present realize the importance of this, so the specific arrangements for the protests were gradually improved in the deliberation of everyone. They want to protest peacefully. These people still have expectations from the government, and we can't let them do that. In a house in Oradea, Dokaya, the region's leader, also received the message. As the largest secret organization in the region, it is not difficult to know this news. However, she will not let the peaceful protest go smoothly. In his opinion, these Hungarians are completely available to use, and through them, the people can see the evil face of the government. As for the deaths and injuries caused by the conflict, it is also an essential part of the revolutionary road. Revolution is not a treat for dinner with warmth. It requires bloodshed and sacrifice. And as long as it can cause conflict, they can make them give up on the government. And the organization can also absorb new blood from it, laying a good foundation for the new world of Romania in the future. Since Dokaya can receive the news that the Hungarians want to protest, the government is not bad. The top local official, Bolafu, was also fascinated by the news. He has attached great importance to the actions of the local Hungarians since he took office, not only giving funds, but also frequently asking about their actions. Did not expect this result to come so quickly. As this news confirmed, a little worried, he couldn't help but ask again. This news came from one of our insiders, and the news is very reliable. In front of him, Dole, the local interior minister, answered. Then do you have any suggestions? Have. As an interior official, Dorel naturally has a way. We have two options. First, turn this march into a riot, and then forcefully suppress it. Then, in that name, expel most of the Hungarians from Romania. The disadvantage is that the image of our country may be criticized outside, and it may have the effect of resisting the integration of other ethnic groups as he deserves to be engaged in internal affairs. His words are simple and clear. But Burley wants to hear about the next plan. And another one, that is to appease the emotions of these Hungarians, and when they protest, give them some less important requests, and apply to Bucharest to suspend the plan to expel the Hungarians. The advantage is that the place can settle down quickly, and it can also make these profitable for the government. The downside is that it will prolong the eviction operation, and it will be different in Bucharest, and it will raise questions about our ability to work. Dorola's words made it difficult for Barlev to choose. No matter what kind of decision, the danger is relatively high, which makes him in a dilemma. It seems that this issue can only be turned over, and I believe that these big figures will give clear instructions on this. I just don't know, will their evaluation of themselves be lowered because of this? Chapter 541 Berkashkaya Rebellion, Part 2. After Belief turned the issue over, a call back reached him from Bucharest. Looking at the few lines on the telegram, he could only sigh. The matter about the parade became more and more clear as the time approached, and Hungarians from all over the country also set off at the scheduled time. The organizers of the parade met for the last time in a private house in Bekashchobeo. Have people from all over come here. All came. More than 1,900 people from Arad, more than 1,400 people from Oradea, more than 1,300 people from Satu 1,700 people from Debrecen, 900 from Nyíregyháza. Many people. As for Bekashchobeo, we expect to mobilize more than 5,000 people, and as our protest marches unfold, we expect to attract sympathetic followers of 10,000 people. That's about 30,000 people, which is enough. Let them come into town at 9 o'clock, and then quickly assemble in the city Hall Square, where we hold a protest. As the conversation continued, a series of questions about who prepared the things and water, who maintained the order of the team, the reporters contacted, etc. were all resolved one by one. Waiting until the end of the discussion, Porty, the organizer, reiterated it again. Remember, this time we are a peaceful petition, and we must restrict everyone from excessive behavior. Please rest assured, I have already told them all that no one will do extreme behavior. And I also told the person in charge of order that, as long as you see extreme behavior, you must subdue the unruly people. Don't give the government a chance to make excuses. I don't worry about this. Everyone go down and prepare. After sending everyone away, Porty himself needs to do some preparations. As a Hungarian, this time he will go to the front of the parade, vowing to advance and retreat with his people. While the Hungarians were preparing for the protest march, Dokar was also making final preparations for her plan in a private house in Bekeszjoba. Are our people ready? She asked her subordinates. It's ready. As long as these Hungarians enter the city, we will mix in and stir up their emotions. Besides, we only have 15 guns. Isn't it too bad to cause chaos and riot? Seeing her subordinates worry, Dokar waved her hand and said, not bad at all. They petitioned in front of the city hall, just assign the guns here, half to the front of the parade. These are the famous Hungarians. The other half was aimed at the police who came to stop it at that time. Shoot at the same time, and immediately retreat after 3 rounds at most. The person who mixed into the team is responsible for calling the police to shoot, and the two sides will definitely start their hands. Dokar asked after speaking, are our people ready? It's ready, just wait for the Hungarians to enter the city. Remember, as long as there is a conflict between the two sides, let our people withdraw immediately. Each of us is precious. Dokar's advice made the subordinates a little moved. I'll tell them. As for the government side, it is much more neat. The high-ranking official Bolef, who was standing by, looking at the 15th Division commander, Major General Dork, listening to the reports of his subordinates with a complicated expression. At present, the 1st Regiment has occupied the city government square, while the 2nd and 3rd Regiments are deployed in the south and north of the city respectively. The cavalry battalion has already taken place outside the city, just waiting for these Hungarians to make trouble. After listening to his subordinate's report, Major General Dork turned to ask Dole, the Secretary of the Interior, How are your preparations over there? At present, the police have also arranged to ambush around their parade route, and my people have mixed into them, just waiting for them to start. Director Dorila's words seemed murderous. The security situation in the Krishana region has been bad, despite a number of reasons. However, as the main person in charge, Dorila himself was also under a lot of pressure. This time, he just reduced the instability factor by 1. These Hungarians are not innocent either. He has intelligence that the active red thugs in the area have been secretly helped by these Hungarians. This time, he wants to let them know that the government is impatient with these people. Unlike the 2 murderous leaders of the military and police, the high-ranking official Bolefu will be more hurt. He was not worried about these unwitting Hungarians, but about his own future. Although the telegram from Bucharest did not reveal the slightest dissatisfaction with him, but his friends in Bucharest told him that the Prime Minister and other top government officials were dissatisfied with his handling of the matter. If it weren't for the stability of the region, and his other abilities are not bad, it is estimated that the order to replace him would be on the way. The Hungarians, who did not know that their actions were seen through and were used by people with intentions, were still preparing for the parade in an orderly manner. As soon as 9 o'clock arrived, marchers from different places entered the city. As soon as they entered the city, they opened the slogans and banners they had prepared and lined up to walk to the city hall. We demand an end to the oppression of Hungarians. We are also Romanian nationals and demand fair treatment. The government should treat us fairly. All kinds of slogans were shouted out uniformly by these demonstrators. The residents of Băcaș-Ciobeau were a little confused about the sudden parade, but many local residents who had contacted before also joined the procession as it passed by. The addition of these people soon led to many local residents. Wow, isn't that Mr. Sinks? That's Mr. West. MS. Madonna is among them. The procession of the parade allowed many local residents to recognize their acquaintances. Some people even greeted him for this reason, and some even took the opportunity to publicize the purpose of the parade to him. So the closer the number of the team was to the city government, the larger the number. Of course, there are also smart people who saw this large-scale demonstration and felt that something was wrong and rushed back home. And these people are mainly Romanian, German, Serbian and other ethnic people. The parade team was not all smooth sailing, and there were some extreme performances. Someone in a parade took the opportunity to shout inappropriate slogans. Let the government give us an explanation, or we will let the Hungarians all over the country rise up to demonstrate. Such a slogan immediately attracted the Hungarians responsible for maintaining order, but by the time they arrived, those who shouted the slogan had already run away. After nearly 2 hours of parade, the teams gathered in front of the city hall square. Looking at the dense parade, the police had already set up a human wall at the gate of the city government, intending to block its possible impact on government agencies. Chapter 542 Băcaș-Ciobeau Rebellion, Part 2. Seeing the city government being protected by the police on guard, Mr. Porty, who was chosen to convey their demands, walked up to the police and opened his mouth. We are here to petition the government peacefully this time. We hope that the government will understand our difficulties and receive the same treatment. We are also Romanian nationals, and we also serve the kingdom and pay taxes. This is our petition. In the face of the petition handed by Porty, a city staff member said after taking it, Your Excellency, you should know that your parade has not been approved by the government and is illegal, but we understand it for the sake of the people. I hope you can restrain them from causing trouble, otherwise the government will not do this. Sit back and watch. It is clear that the words of this government worker are warning them not to make trouble, and his words made Porty put down a hanging heart. Originally, he had prepared for the worst, and the government would suppress their illegal demonstrations. Although this can also attract attention, these demonstrators are all from other ethnic groups, and he cannot bear to be harmed for this. And now there is only one warning, which has achieved the goal and let everyone retreat. As for the future troubles that he, the leader, may encounter in the future, he has long ignored it. Several people in the city hall were watching as Porty negotiated with government workers. There are about 30,000 Hungarians in these marches, but they are all vulnerable. As the military chief, Major General Dork first looked at the problem from a military perspective. Then he turned to ask the Secretary of the Interior beside him, When will your people start? It's better to wait until the patience of the people marching below is exhausted. And just after they spoke, there was a burst of gunshots. Porty, the government worker, and several people around him were covered in blood. Someone took the opportunity to do something. A few people were startled by a few gunshots, and this idea flashed in my mind immediately. As for the plaza, tens of thousands of people watched as Poldy, who was in charge of the negotiations, had blood on his body. The old man who cared about his family fell to the ground on the spot, and the sound of gunfire also triggered riots in the demonstration team. Some people were timid and wanted to quit, and some people had sparks of anger in their eyes. And more people are in a stunned expression. They don't know what to do next. And then there was a roar. It was the government that shot Mr. Porty and we want to avenge him. So more people followed this voice and began to attack the city government. Facing the surging crowd, the police who are in charge of the front line have no regard for the consequences. At this time, no one will be reasonable, and they must pay attention to strength. Fortunately, they have prepared guns and other weapons to prevent possible danger. Although the police officer leading the team did not know why it was different from the plan he had prepared, he still chose to suppress it first. Crack, clap, clap. The police's gunshots sounded, and the people who rushed to the front row fell in a pool of blood. The experience of the people in front made many people calm down their emotions. At this moment, they felt scared, and the crowd's shock was stopped. And Major General Dork, who was in charge of the operation in the government building, was also giving orders. Although he didn't know that the forces were disrupting the situation, he was very clear about what he needed to do first. The 1st Regiment was ordered to immediately go to the square to suppress the riots. The 2nd and 3rd regiments were under martial law in the city, and no one was allowed to leave the city. The cavalry battalion patrolled outside the city and intercepted anyone who went out of the city without permission. Following the order, soldiers in military uniforms surrounded the square. Under the leadership of the officers, they ordered everyone to squat down with their heads folded, and anyone who didn't obey the order would go up to the butt of a gun. The troops of the 2nd and 3rd Regiment also started the work of martial law. They closed all the shops, and the pedestrians were asked to go home immediately after their identities were checked. Under the supervision of the army, the market was instantly deserted. Both sides of the street are closed, and there is not a single pedestrian on the street. The move by the army was embarrassing for the fleeing demonstrators, because they were large and conspicuous and there was no one else on the streets. They are as conspicuous as fish on the beach, so these people are caught by the army like chickens. As for those who live in the local area, they are not afraid, because the parade has been seen by too many people, and the security police in charge of various districts in the city have already kept their appearance on the street. The military martial law also has an advantage, that is, it will block Porty and others who sparked the riot and brought down the government's wishful thinking in the city. How about you? Can you go out? No. Now the military is under martial law, and every pedestrian on the road is being searched, and all kinds of vehicles have been stopped and checked carefully. At present, it is completely impossible to get out. The news reported by the subordinates made Docker's heart tighten, and at the same time she felt a little annoyed. This time, it was a mess. Although she has achieved her goal, it seems that the government has the same idea as her. If I knew this earlier, I would not intervene, and now most people in the organization are in a dangerous situation. So she said, after thinking about it. Anyway, the first priority now is to let us leave first. We can't do it, but it doesn't mean that someone can't do it. As a local, do you know any underground merchants who deliver goods privately? Maybe they have a way. We stay here. It is very likely to be investigated on a large scale by the military and police, which is too dangerous. Don't be afraid to spend money. The spark of revolution is more important. The subordinate who was instructed by Docker quickly showed a person in his mind, and this time he planned to find the other party to try. I know a person. This person is the largest underground businessman in the city. Many smuggled goods are handled by him. Maybe he can find a way. Then you go. Pay attention to safety. Under Docker's instructions, his subordinates went out again. This time he was specializing in checking the remote roads. I believe there will be results soon. Point. When Dokaya wanted to run away, someone was already thinking about her inside the city hall. A detective was reporting the investigation that led to the riots to the 3 officers present. According to our investigation, the shooting came from a high-rise building next to the square. Our personnel found abandoned guns and bullet casings at the scene, and during a visit to the surrounding residents, they found that they were when the parade was about to arrive at the square upstairs, and after the shooting, the men left in a horse-drawn carriage. Major General Dork interrupted at this time. They should not have left the city, because my people have been in martial law since the shooting. They can only go in but not out. These people should still be trapped in the city. So what do you mean? Immediately start a house-to-house search, rummaging through Bakashjo's bags to find them. If they get away, we are all at fault. Then do as you wish. Following the order, a more intensive search began. The news of the Bakashjo riot naturally did not disappear with the martial law, and news about the riot appeared in European newspapers. Chapter 543 Follow-up influences. Bucharest received news of the riot earlier than any other country in Europe. However, compared with the sympathetic voices abroad, domestic voices are always supportive of the government. As the largest private newspaper in Romania, the News Times reported on this. A shocking incident happened in Bakashjo. Local Hungarians organized attacks on government institutions, killing nearly 100 people and injuring thousands. What follows is a detailed report on the riots, but the newspapers mainly said that Hungary was dissatisfied with the government and did not mention its situation at all. In fact, it is not just the News Times reporting this way, but other Romanian newspapers are reporting this way. Under the propaganda of the newspaper broadcast, many people were dissatisfied with these Hungarians, and some radical newspapers even shouted to drive them to Hungary. In fact, these Hungarians who are still in Romania have long been suppressed and obedient, and those who are dissatisfied have long been expelled from Romania. However, Edel was forced by reality, and the encounter during this period is likely to cause a rebound in the future. And he quite appreciates the harsh words of the beggar when he is the emperor. Either don't do it. If you do it, you must do it. Therefore, these nearly 1 million Hungarians have always been the concern of the government. This time, no matter if they are a peaceful demonstration or something, they will be charged with a charge against the government. Deportation would be the best outcome if they didn't want to spend 10 years in prison. I believe that these people are aware of current affairs. Compared with the freedom of being imprisoned for nearly 10 years, it is better to go to Hungary. At least there is still room for freedom. While Edel was planning for Romania's centennial plan, a fierce battle was breaking out in Bakashjo. You take the leader to go first. We will stop later. Several members of the Red Party were roaring loudly at the others, and behind him were looming figures of military police. Dokaya, who was their leader, looked at these brave warriors with tears in her eyes. She regretted it very much, now that the smuggler sold them all, guided them to the enemy's encirclement, and they were able to rush out thanks to the self-blaming person in charge with several people who used human bombs to break a gap and let them escape. However, these government lackeys did not let go of their plans, and they have been chasing after them. No way. Dokaya could only leave quickly with the few people she had, because she knows that if she stays here, everyone will die together, and if she can escape, there is at least hope of regrouping. When they didn't go far, a burst of gunshots rang out, and then they calmed down quietly. Several people's expressions dimmed. This is the sacrifice of their comrades. It's not the way to run like this, chief, or else you go alone. We stay behind to attract the attention of the enemy. Our goal is too obvious to get there. A subordinate, who was dying, offered advice, and his words also aroused the approval of others present. Even following the steadfast revolutionaries who have followed up to now, they must make the most favorable choice under such a critical situation. Obviously, it is the most favorable outcome for Dokaya to escape. That's right, chief. You can't be caught by the enemy. We must keep you safe. The subordinate's words attracted the approval of others. You can't imagine that you would withdraw the enemy into the city, chief. We will break out in other places. As soon as we find the enemy, we will fire immediately. We will try our best to attract the enemy's attention and create opportunities for others to escape. Supplementary opinions were quickly implemented, and Dokaya was not an indecisive person. She covered it up a little, made herself more like an ordinary person, and left after taking care of the people present. While the others chose their own direction. To disperse away. They had a good idea, but this time they were about to miscalculate. In order to capture their unexpected surprise, this time, 2 battalions of soldiers formed a blockade on the periphery, and the police and spies who were chasing them also brought enough police dogs for tracking. Not long after they separated, a large group of military police, with the help of police dogs, also dispersed into several teams to pursue. Stop doing what? On a chase road, a policeman spotted a man trying to hide and immediately began to ask questions. When he found himself exposed, he immediately took out his pistol team and shot the police. However, shooting in a panic was not good, and he failed to hit the policeman who questioned him. The policeman and his companions who escaped the gate of hell immediately found a bunker to shoot at him. At this time, the gunshots were loud, and the man's hope of escaping was cut off. Not long after, with the support of other military police, the man who was shot several times fell into a pool of blood. Scenarios like this keep happening in this area. These scattered and escaped red molecules tried to escape from the sky by hiding, escaping, disguising and other means, but they were all seen through. The resistance of these dead element also caused casualties in the military and police. However, the overall result is still good, but its leader Doc I has not been caught. As a local intelligence department, it has a deep understanding of the leader of this red organization in the area. Under its leadership, the red organization has been unusually active in the region, and this time is a great opportunity to catch him. Therefore, this arrest is still not perfect, but Oral, the interior director who directed the arrest, believes that the main target of this arrest has not escaped, and she is still within the encirclement. Director Dole's estimate was correct. Doc R was indeed still within the encirclement, but he was close to the final blockade. She was hiding behind a big rock, frowning at the blockade that was less than 50 meters ahead. On this final blockade line, all of them were made up of soldiers, and they also pulled up barbed wire and hung bells on it. As long as they touched it, they would be discovered by the soldiers immediately. As for trying to get in the past, it's just as impossible. Before, she found that someone was immediately questioned by soldiers in the past. After that, instead of letting them go, she was taken to wait not far away, and it seemed that she would have to go through another questioning. Doc I knew that she could never escape to interrogations, and the military and police who were misled by her own suspicions would soon find their true route. Can't afford it. The voice in her heart told her that she must make a decision immediately. Doc I gritted her teeth and groped forward quietly with a long wooden stick. Because this was the best place for her to escape, a tree blocked the sight of the soldier at the whistle. As long as you are careful not to touch the bell, you can sneak past. When she touched the barbed wire, Doc R focused her attention on the soldiers at the whistle. While propping up the long wooden stick, she planned to use the tree to help herself escape. The tense atmosphere did not distract her. Near closer she had already touched the tree trunk with one hand, and the tension in her heart loosened a little. She didn't realize that one of her shoes was hanging on the barbed wire. Following her movements, the jingle bells rang, which immediately attracted the attention of the soldiers whose were come out. Chapter 544 The end of 928 years. I didn't expect that there would be surprises. Edel was holding the telegram that had just been sent from Bekesh Jobao, which said the telegram that killed the red leader Doc I. Edel is also familiar with the name of this woman, because this woman has been seen in many violent incidents in the Krishana area. In the second half of the telegram, it also stated the behind the scenes role played by the Red organization in the riot, along with the testimony of arresting its members. It seems that this time it is necessary to send a chief officer with excellent public security ability to rectify the local order. Edel decided to change to a more capable chief to govern in the Krishana region, and poor Balev lost his high-ranking position because of his hesitation. Of course, Edel did not forget the big event of expelling Hungary. The government has already restricted travel in various regions of Hungary, waiting for violent institutions such as the police and army to drive them across the Tisza River. As for the public opinion of the outside world, Edel can only say that he doesn't care at all. If they have the ability, they will accept 1 million Hungarians as for whether the influx of these people into the Kingdom of Hungary will have an impact on the local area. It doesn't matter to Romania. The Hungarian admiral who has the ability also drives out these compatriots, but according to the ability of the admiral, he does not dare to do so, otherwise he is digging the foundation of his own governance point. But there is one thing that Edel did not expect. After seeing Romania simply and rudely expelling the Hungarians, the Czech Republic and Yugoslavia also tore off their only masks and drove the Hungarians from the two countries into the Hungarian kingdom in the same way. As a result, Hungary's population has soared by 37% in just 2 years, causing instability in its domestic security, and the economy has deteriorated severely, with no improvement at all. It can be said that all this was caused by the debts owed by the Hungarians during the Austro-Hungarian Empire, who made them oppress other ethnic groups at that time, causing dissatisfaction among all ethnic groups. Now that you are in trouble, you are kind-hearted if you don't step on your feet and spit twice. Of course, this is another story. As for the current economic construction, the expulsion of the Hungarians is only to change the ethnic structure of the region. It's just a bit more drastic, but the effect is also very good. Didn't you see that the Soviet Union was very skilled at using this trick on its own in later generations, and rushed all the cities of Lviv, a city dominated by Poles, to Poland, and made room for the domestic nationalities. In later generations, there are basically no Poles here, and Königsberg, East Prussia, where Hohenzollern started, did it once in the same way. So Edel also learned from the Soviet Union. You said that this was your territory originally. Let the locals vote. Time passed slowly as the Hungarians were driven out, and soon the end of the year was coming. During this period, two major events occurred in the world that had an impact on Romania. The first is that the Taisho Emperor of Japan passed away, and the Crown Prince succeeded to the throne as Shah. This era, which was ridiculed as recruiting nuclear in later generations, also represents changes in Japan's politics and diplomacy. First of all, this young emperor is different from his incompetent father, and he has the ambition of hard work, which is not the same as the political philosophy of the elders during the Taisho period. However, the two sides have not yet had a conflict of ideas, but the future is uncertain. In addition, Japan's foreign policy is undergoing drastic changes, mainly from the Great Kanto earthquake in 1926. Prior to this, Japan mainly focused on economic plunder in the Far East, exerting influence for its own benefit. After the Great Kanto earthquake, Japan suddenly felt the danger of the survival of the island country, and Japan, which is in an earthquake-prone area, felt particularly deeply. Therefore, landing on the land at this time has become a political voice that cannot be ignored. The region is only the northeast, which is prone to wars at this time. Under the development of the Zhang family, the northeast had 30 million people, but compared to the 70 million Japanese living in the Japanese archipelago, it was still so empty. Of course, their ambition is still buried in their hearts, because they have not yet figured out the strength of the Zhang family and their sons. Although the lower level radical officers killed Mr. Zhang, the upper level Japanese still had some reasons to seize the northeast. Perhaps it can be encouraged to test the North Manchurian Railway in the hands of the Soviets, and whether it is successful or not, it can test the strength of the Soviet Union and the Zhang family. As for the second incident, it also happened in the Far East continent. Edel's friend became the leader of the country, and although there were still many opponents within it, he was nominally the ruler of the country. Since it is a ruler, it can represent the country, and the Romanian government also expressed goodwill to it. The arms contract worth tens of millions of lei was given to the leader who urgently needed to expand his strength in a half-sell and half-sell attitude. In return, the leader promised to sell the country's export rights to Romania's bristle, tongue oil, tungsten ore and other resources. However, Romania must not buy these materials at a price lower than the average price of the previous year. As the price of purchasing these materials, Romania signed a loan agreement with it, lending 100 million lei to the leader, and the collateral is the 5-year agency right of the above-mentioned materials. Of course, to outsiders, this is Romania's gamble, that the leader can truly become the country's leader. It has become so profitable for Romania, and the loans and arms, before losing will be lost. However, no one can see through the current development of the situation in the Far East, but Edel knows this by heart. Although the leader's reputation in later generations is not very good, it is much higher than his current competitors. There is nothing wrong with this investment. As for defaulting on debts, it is even more impossible. Armed salary collection is not someone's patent, and Romania, as a newly promoted power, is not afraid of defaulting at all. In addition, Major General Modelk, who served as his personal advisor, sent a message that the leader was also in contact with Germany and seemed to be seeking military assistance. Edel sighed after seeing this telegram, but did not expect the inertia of history to be so powerful. On the other hand, it is also the influence of Germany that has been deeply cultivated in the region for many years. It is not comparable to Romania, which has just entered here. Although Edel used his personal connections to come out on top, he still couldn't stop Germany's reputation here. So for this news, Edel asked to reply to Major General Modelk and just do his job well. Let the leader see that the Romanians are no worse than the German side. Soon it was 1929, and Edel knew a world-changing event was about to happen. At present, Romania needs to protect itself, and this and other things can't be controlled so much. Chapter 545 1929. New York in the United States is still so prosperous with the arrival of the new year. On the island of Manhattan, the core of New York, there are hundreds of securities firms, large and small. Some of these large and small securities companies have thousands of employees and operate financial activities around the world. As for the small ones, there are only 2 or 3 kittens trying to trick them into investing money in the prosperous stock market from the hands of those housewives. The Alpha Securities Company on 5th Avenue is neither big nor small, but it is not too conspicuous. This Alpha Securities Company is a newly established securities company in recent years, mainly engaged in the business of stock trading. At present, the stock market on Wall Street is extremely prosperous. Workers, housewives, small traders, and even beggars are talking about stocks. Regardless of whether these people know or not, they talk about stocks in a straightforward manner. In the eyes of the public, the current stock market is really hot, and newspapers are reporting every day that anyone who enters the market with a few $100 has made tens of thousands of dollars in less than 3 months. And those stock experts, government officials, and even the new White House owner are talking about how good the stock market is. This makes everyone believe they can make a fortune out of it too. So who loses money in such a hot stock trading? Various securities companies also made quite good profits. As one of them, Alpha Securities Co. naturally made a lot of money. The company has grown from 500 million assets just established to the current scale of more than 900 million. In this, Lee Desmond, as company president, made a decisive contribution. But today in Alpha Securities, the scene was silent. It's not that no one is there, on the contrary, there are more than a dozen middle and upper level managers of the company. The reason is that President Lieberman has just announced a decision. The company's next step is to gradually clear out the stocks and marketable securities it holds, and then transfer the assets to Romania. That's right, the company's only shareholder is the Romanian government, and all of its assets are made up of the $500 million Edel withheld from the issuance of government bonds. As for President Lieberman and the middle and upper levels of the company, they are also composed of financial elites selected by the government. So an order from Bucharest, they couldn't refuse. But although they can't refuse, it doesn't mean they can't express their opinions what the company should see in the development of the government in the past 2 years. Why did it announce its withdrawal from the United States at this time? Yeah, look at the current stock market. It's like picking up money with your eyes closed. Can you send a newspaper to the government and let them know that we will finish this business before leaving? You guys are alright. I just finished talking with Chase Bank about the bond issue yesterday, and now I have an order and I don't know how to explain it. The words of the people present only have one focus, that is to hope that the government will consider it before making a decision. Originally, shortly after Christmas, I was stunned by the first order in 1929. The gossip of everyone caused Lieberman to feel agitated, and this time Bucharest's order also made him very uncomfortable. The sky is high and the emperor is far away. Although on Wall Street, it is impossible to have wind and rain, but he is still a character. Many billionaires need peace and harmony when they see themselves. This made him feel dark in Romania, who could only listen to other people's instructions in the Ministry of Finance. Leedsman wanted to wait for him to make enough good results to allow him to run the bond company for a long time. Now all orders have been lost. So when I heard the subordinates gossip and talk about it, a burst of anger came to my heart. Snaphead sound of a heavy slap on the table interrupted everyone's conversation, and Leedsman looked at everyone with fiery eyes. Have you had enough trouble? Do you know the seriousness of this order? You thought you were going to the market to buy vegetables, and you could still bargain. Since the government has made a decision, we can only implement it. Have you been in New York for a long time? Forgot what we were doing. Leedsman's words are not only for everyone to hear, but also for himself. He knew that even he was lost in the drunken traffic lights of New York, and these subordinates were no exception. As far as he knows, there are people who have several lovers in New York, and fall into the gentle village every day after get off work. In this regard, Leedsman turns a blind eye, as long as they do not affect the interests of the company, and do not do things that are harmful to the company. Moreover, these people are composed of people sent by multiple government departments. Although they are in charge of the company's work, they have no control over the private lives of others. In his opinion, these people are reluctant to live in the flashy life of this city, so they are a little dissatisfied with returning to Bucharest. Because he also has such a mentality, so he needs to beat them first. The government's decision, they have no right to interfere, or even have the qualifications to inquire, they can only implement it. After being scolded by Leedsman, everyone present recovered, and they all knew that their previous attitude was wrong. Fortunately, they are the only people here. If it is known that they are dissatisfied with the government's decision, then don't expect promotions or anything. Maybe they won't be able to keep their original positions. After all, they are just working for the government. It's just that the government uses their hands to help it make money in New York. Okay, cheer up. I believe that the government should be satisfied with our work. At least you should be able to upgrade your level after returning to Bucharest. No matter how good New York is, it is not our home. Only in Romania the taste of Leedsman's few words of encouragement lifted everyone's mood. That's right, since you are destined to go back, you still need to think about what to do after you go back. Let me start by saying that you should gradually reduce the business in your hands. If other securities companies are interested, you can sell them to them. Then the shares held by the company will also be gradually reduced within 3 months. The same is true for marketable bonds. This task is not easy, and everyone needs to work together to complete this task. Leedsman is right. There are too many stocks and marketable securities on hand, and the reduction of holdings is also a technical task. It is impossible to reduce holdings all the time, because this is likely to cause the share price of the company in which the holding stock is held to fall. Instead, you have to sell and buy, sell more and buy less, in order to ensure that your profits from holding stocks will not decrease. Everyone present knows this truth, which is why the government gave him 3 or 4 months so next Alpha Securities began to gradually spit out the stocks it held. At any other time, the company's actions to clean up its holdings would likely attract the attention of others. But in 1929, when the stock market was frenzied, their actions were covered up. Stocks worth millions of dollars are sold every day and are immediately absorbed by the surging buying, like a wave in the tide. Of course, this also has a lot to do with the scale of the stock released. If tens of millions of dollars are released every day, it is difficult not to be noticed. Chapter 546, A Sudden Vacation, Part 1. The decision to repatriate US assets was made by Edel himself. Although he forgot when the Great Depression started, he still knew it was the second half of the year. Now that you know the approximate time, you can't watch this wealth be lost as the US stock market falls as for taking advantage of the conditions of foresight to profit from the plummeting stock market. This is a bit difficult for Edel, because less money is not worth speculating, and more money cannot be taken back at all. And Edel doesn't want to be named as a culprit behind the decline in the US stock market. It's not that he's afraid, it's that it's not worth it. He didn't make much money, but he was burdened with infamy. For example, in the original history, Jesse Livermore made a lot of money by shorting US stocks, but he was notorious later, and later failed to invest many times, and finally committed suicide. This is still the US's own people, and if Romania is replaced, it is estimated that this is a conspiracy against the United States. Edel only needs the money to return home safely, and then when the Great Depression comes, expand domestic demand, and buy the technology and equipment of various countries. And Romania is not as hungry as the Soviet Union, and does not require high technology and equipment. At that time, Romania will be targeted for reinforcement, allowing Romanian industry to take advantage of this opportunity, to become bigger and stronger. Of course, this is for future plans, and in addition to focusing on the transfer of Romanian properties in the United States, he is also planning for future infrastructure expansion. Edel is certainly no stranger to expanding domestic demand. Although the operation of expanding domestic demand of rabbits in the future has not been carefully studied, it is also known in the daily news broadcasts. The rabbit set is also a copy of the future Roosevelt New Deal, but some improvements have been made. Since rabbits can do it, Edel will naturally learn something. The way to resist the Great Depression is to expand domestic demand, and the best way to expand domestic demand is to build infrastructure. Of course, this is to treat the symptoms rather than the root causes, and it is more to push the problem backward. But for Edel, this is enough, and the smoke over Europe in the future will make people unable to open their eyes. Yes, the two cures for the Great Depression. Edel intends to use both. As for the current practice of the Western government, which is completely handed over to the market, he is not at all impressed. Since the government naturally needs to control the air, this is Edel's perception. Of course, it is also influenced by the rabbits of later generations. Only the big government can do things better, and it is purely non-doing behavior to leave the problem to the market to adjust itself. So Edel discussed with the Prime Minister and others in advance about infrastructure construction next year. This is your plan for next year. Edel looked at the plan in his hand. He opened his mouth and asked the Prime Minister and others, "Yes, Your Majesty, this is the plan we made after comprehensive consideration." In the face of Edel's inquiry, Prime Minister Caraccioli confirmed the answer. "I'm not satisfied that this plan is too small. You can reconsider it," before bringing it up. After Edel finished speaking, he felt an inexplicable irritability, not dissatisfaction with them, but a sudden emotion in his heart. Edel was dissatisfied with the decision to let them rework the plan, which did not make His Excellency the Prime Minister dissatisfied, but he was a little puzzled that Edel was concerned about the government work next year so early. It's just that doubts are returned to doubts. Just hit back and redo it. And also gave him the opinion that the scale is too small. In Caraccioli's view, the scale of construction in this plan is not small. A double-track railway from Bucharest to Lviv, and a railway from Odessa to Lviv, plus several connecting cities higher highways, and there are plans to build a hydroelectric power station on the Danube. It can be said that the infrastructure construction this time has been higher than that in any previous year. If he is not satisfied with this, Caraccioli can only go back to the Prime Minister's office to discuss with others and come up with a grander blueprint for construction. After sending the Prime Minister and others away, Edel took a long time to suppress this irritable mood, and he himself knew that something was wrong with him recently. The reason for this is mainly the doubts about whether the things to be done in the future can meet expectations. Yes, Edel has no confidence in Romania's ability to seize this opportunity to grow during the Great Depression. Don't look at his confident expression before, but even he doesn't know whether the prepared measures can meet expectations. Don't look at the fact that Roosevelt's New Deal has been thoroughly studied in the future, and he has also seen the plan implemented by the rabbit in the country. However, what problems have arisen and how to solve them, I don't know at all. This is also because he lacks confidence, so he is irritable. The direct result of this is that he asked the Prime Minister to show him the infrastructure construction plan half a year in advance. Boom, the door was pushed open. What's the matter? Edel, who was closing in repose, asked without raising his head. Presumably the guard had something important to do. Instead of getting the answer he wanted, a familiar voice came. Can't I come? This is the voice of his wife. When he opened his eyes, it was indeed his wife who was standing in front of him with a smile and looking at him. Mary, why are you here? Edel was a little unprepared for the arrival of his wife. because his wife basically doesn't come into his office. Is there something wrong with coming here this time? I'll come over to take a look. I happened to see you resting, so I couldn't help but care. Point. Although the wife said nothing, but the worry hidden in her eyes could not be concealed. Edel knew that her irritability had been discovered by her wife, and for her own sake, she hid this worry, but it was not a good way to hide it. Point. At this moment, Edel suddenly appeared to temporarily put aside these major national affairs in his hands, and felt the taste of family affection with his family. Point. Since Edel thought so, so did it. Point. Let's go on vacation. It's been a long time since I went to the Peresh Palace. I miss the beautiful environment. Point. Edel's words made his wife's smile completely bloom, and she said it with a smile. So when are you going to go? We are leaving tomorrow. Point. Edel also wants to take a trip that can be said to go. Although it is still a little worse, it is not bad. After all, the king travels no better than ordinary people. Point. When the news of Edel's desire to go on vacation reached Kirichiri, who had just returned to the Prime Minister's office, the Prime Minister spoke to several other ministers. There is still a lot of time for the planning of infrastructure construction. Don't worry, there needs to be a lot of military, economic, and political considerations. The meaning of the Prime Minister's words was understood by everyone present. At the same time, Edel's trip also made everyone breathe a sigh of relief. His Majesty's mood has been a little unpredictable recently, and it's a relief to leave now. Point. It seems that Edel's irritability still affects these cabinet ministers. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547, A Sudden Vacation, Part 2. Sinaia, located in the southern Carpathian Mountains, is an excellent holiday destination with beautiful scenery The old father, Karol I, also took a fancy to this place and asked him to build the Peresh Palace. The Edel family took the guards to the royal palace. Point. The spring sun shines on the earth, making the flowers blooming all over the mountains and fields full of the breath of spring. Edel and his wife strolled along the forest path, feeling the rare tranquility. Point. The scenery here is so beautiful. Even if I come here many times, I will never get tired of seeing it. Point. Queen Mary snuggled up to Edel, admiring the beautiful scenery here. Point. And his wife's words made Edel feel guilty. He cared too little for his family. It seems that it is necessary to take a vacation here every year. As long as you want, I will bring you here to see the scenery every year. The simple love words made Queen Mary smile even brighter. That's what you said. Point. Edel didn't know what to do at this time. He nodded vigorously. Point. The response given by Edel made Queen Mary feel at ease, and she suddenly spoke with a childlike innocence. I want you to make me a wreath yourself. Point. As you wish, my princess. Seeing that, Edel immediately reached out to pick wildflowers to weave a wreath for herself. Queen Mary stood on the side of the road like a girl waiting for her lover. The picture at this time is very similar to the scene in the poem. It is so beautiful. But at this time, a figure broke in, and the bear child ran past them like a splash, followed by two guards who were worried about him. Point. Victor, stop for me. Point. Under the scolding of Queen Mary, the bear child stopped. Point. At this time, Victor's image couldn't bear to look directly. His clothes were covered with mud, and his trousers had been scratched somewhere. There was a poor young bird in one of his hands, and he didn't know which bird's nest it was from. Point. Edel, who also saw such a scene, felt blue veins burst out and some suppressed anger in his heart. If it weren't for the fact that he and his wife were very affectionate, this would make him wonder if the son was his own. Why is he so naughty? He is still so playful at the age of 14. It is not that he did not find a famous teacher to teach him, and his wife often urges him, but it feels like he just can't control it, and he disappears if he is not careful. Point. So Edel, who felt deeply that his education failed, couldn't help raising his hand, but in the end it didn't fall. It wasn't that he couldn't bear it, but that he was about to be completely disappointed. Point. Victor, who didn't know his father's mood at all, was a little puzzled about not being beaten this time. Point. Edel took a deep look at his son and said to the guard behind him, "Take care of him and stop letting him run around." Point. The two guards, who were deeply dereliction of duty, took a sigh of relief and pulled the bear boy, no, the problem boy away. Point. After the Edel and his wife, who were in no mood, sighed. They also put away their mood to continue watching the scenery and silently returned to the castle. Point of course, if the troubled teenager was left behind, then this vacation was not bad. At least it calmed Edel's restless heart. After that, he walked around to see the scenery every day, and he lived a very pleasant life. Point of course, he was not at all ignorant of news from the outside world, and he was informed by telegrams of major events happening in various places. For example, he knows the current war in the Far East, but he doesn't care much about it, because it has little to do with Romania. Nor could he intervene to the detriment of Romania's interests, but another news caught Edel's attention. That is the young master of the Zhang family who currently occupies the northeast, and it is very likely that he will attack the interests of the Soviet Union in the region. Edel's senses are not very good for this young master of the Zhang family. As for the country, Edel knows that the current agricultural reform is doing well. Farmers in many areas were unable to fight against this bill and could only speed up the purchase of various agricultural machinery to replace the previous manpower. This made the Ploiesti machinery factory, which is mainly responsible for the production of these products, work overtime to complete these tasks. I heard that some orders have been placed until next year. Of course, there are also people who can't keep up with the times, but these people who can't keep up with the times are destined to be eliminated, and Edel will not stop and wait for them. In addition, in terms of the army's 3-regiment reform has also been completed, and Admiral Fried also sent a telegram to inform himself. As for the Navy, Lieutenant Admiral Lummerton also sent a message asking if he had time to attend the launching ceremony of the Brebis, a heavy cruiser. This guy knew he was on vacation and sent this telegram. Of course he was rejected. In addition, the money in the United States is being transferred back to the country one after another, and Prime Minister Karachuri sent a telegram saying that the transfer should be completed after another month. Everything was going on in an orderly manner, but Edel suddenly found that he couldn't be idle at all. He wanted to know all the news about the government, and if there was no news for a day, he always felt something was missing. Edel knows that there are many reports in later generations that have also mentioned this situation. This is because people are used to being busy, and suddenly they are not used to being idle at all. Thinking of this, Edel couldn't help laughing at himself, that he was working hard, and he couldn't rest. Edel's abnormal performance also caught his wife's attention. Edel, why don't we go back? Facing his understanding wife, he said with a smile. No, I said that I'm going to rest this time, but I can't go back now. I'm fine too, don't worry, and it's not bad. I'll be with you every day, and then take some time to pay attention to the news from the outside world. When Edel said this, some couldn't help but ask, how are the children? Maureen is not bad. It's just that Victor is so naughty that sometimes I wonder if I should send him to the Boy Scouts to work out. Do not. Facing this idea of his wife, Edel knew the troubles of the little devil king and sent it to the Boy Scouts. Wouldn't that be a scourge to other teenagers? However, this also gave him a hint, perhaps making this little devil obedient, or send him to the army and let him receive the strictest discipline. That's right, Edel intends to take his wife's idea one level further and send it to the melting pot of the army. This is a correctional place that is only a little bit worse than a prison. If it is a dragon, you have to be coiled, or a tiger, you have to lie down. However, Edel's words made Queen Mary a little worried. Is it too early to send Victor to the army for training? It's not too late. I'm afraid that he will cause some trouble if he is older. Now it's good to send him to the army while he is still young. Edel felt more and more that his decision was correct. He knew how to play all day long and just sent it to the army to let him know the rules. Is that alright? Mary had no objection to sending her son to the army, knowing that it is normal for various princes in Europe to enter the army for training. It's just that this time Edel intends to let his son start as a soldier, which is what his wife doesn't know. Sleeping sweetly, Prince Victor did not know that the day of his misery was coming. Let the troubled boy accept the smelting of the army. Chapter 548. The Great Depression begins. Refreshing and refreshed, Edda returned to Bucharest in early summer. Edda, who returned to the capital, immediately fell into work, and he did not rush the infrastructure plan he had previously asked the government to do. Moreover, after he returned to the capital, the huge sum of $900 million from Romania had also been transferred back to the country, and Edel, who was in his pocket, had nothing to worry about. The days passed so slowly, until one day in September, a guard hurried in, when he was busy. Your Majesty, this is a telegram from the United States. As soon as Edel heard it was a telegram from the United States, he immediately took it and read it. The telegram contained nothing but news about the US stock market. With just a few sentences written on it, the New York stock market fell 46 points on September 5th, with 13 million shares traded throughout the day. Don't think this drop is not high. You must know that the Wall Street stock market currently closed at 391 points the day before. That's a drop of nearly 12% in a day and a panic in the market. It happened to be a Thursday, so it was also known as Black Thursday. Is this the beginning of the Great Depression? Edel couldn't make up her mind. While Edel pondered, the United States was also shocked by the stock market crash. Among them, the White House made a speech on the decline of the stock market in New York, and the new President Hoover declared that the current US economy is all normal and the economic structure is functioning well. And as Treasury Secretary Mellon also spoke to the newspaper in a high-profile manner, there is no reason to worry now, and this boom in prosperity will continue. However, the speeches of senior White House officials did not seem to enhance the confidence of the stock market. The next day, the US stock market continued to fall after the market opened. Although the decline was higher than that of the previous day, its momentum was unstoppable at first sight. On the same day, the Wall Street stock market fell 51 points again, and it has fallen below the 300-point mark. This made the market wailing, and many people added heavy losses to this. The fall in the stock market on Wall Street has made people lose a lot of money, and at this time they especially hope that a hero will stand up to save the market. The last hero who saved the city, Morgan, was so high hopes. The newspapers also hoped that the king of Wall Street financing could rescue the falling stock market. Of course, Morgan, who had high hopes, also hoped to save the stock market, and the people's hope made Morgan unable to refuse. So in the case of people calling for 1,000 times, Wall Street capital represented by Morgan chose to save the market. Because if the financial markets go into a depression, the income of Wall Street's capitalists will also plummet. As for later generations, some people say that this stock market crash has the shadow of Wall Street, which is pure fart. The stock market crash has done more harm than good to Wall Street, and it is not normal to not save it. However, they also underestimated the power of this stock market decline, and the billions of capital they carried were submerged by the turbulent falling wave without even seeing a wave. So far, the momentum of the stock market crash can no longer be stopped, and no one can say when the decline will end. The fall in the stock market has compounded many losses, and many people have invested all their wealth in the previously prosperous stock market. This falling wave has left him impoverished, and many people could not bear the huge blow and chose to end their lives. During that time, many pedestrians in New York did not dare to approach buildings such as high-rise hotels. Maybe a figure would fall from the top and end his life with a loud bang. According to statistics, during this period of time, an average of thousands of people in New York took their own lives every month by shooting, jumping off buildings, or jumping into rivers. The Manhattan and Brooklyn bridges have become shrines for suicide, with many impoverished in the stock market route jumping into the sea in modest clothing. The decline in the stock market also quickly affected the economy, and many companies suffered heavy losses in the decline in the stock market. These are all fascinated by the booming stock market, diverting corporate funds into the stock market in an attempt to make a fortune. But they, like those housewives, suffered heavy losses in the stock market slump, leaving their businesses in trouble. Layoffs and closures have also become the norm for American companies during this period. A total of $30 billion in wealth has vanished in just 2 weeks since the rout began on September 5th. At this time, the GDP of the United States was only $103.6 billion. It can be said that the United States lost 30% of its GDP in 2 weeks. After that, it was not until the outbreak of World War II that the US GDP returned to the level before the Great Depression. The main reason is the imbalance of the domestic economy and overproduction. From 1920 to 1929, workers' hourly wages rose by only 2%, while worker productivity in factories soared by 55%. At the same time, the real income of farmers is also decreasing due to the falling prices of agricultural products and the rising rent and living costs. In 1910, each farm worker earned less than 40% of the income of non-farm workers. By 1930, it was less than 30%. This poverty in the countryside was a serious problem, since at that time the agricultural population accounted for 1/5 of the total population. In the 1920s, there were already a number of unfavorable trends in economic development that were ignored at that time. While agriculture never fully recovered from the post-war depression, farmers remained poor throughout this period. In addition, the so-called higher wages in the industrial sector, many of which are false. During this decade, the introduction of new machines pushed out large numbers of workers. For example, between 1920 and 1929, the gross industrial output value increased by almost 50%, while the number of industrial workers did not increase, and the number of transportation workers actually decreased. The largest increase in workers has been in the low-wage service sector, which undoubtedly includes many skilled workers who have lost their jobs as a result of technological progress. So the statistics, which indicate a slight increase in wages, do not appear to reflect the true picture. Since the workers and peasants are the basic consumers, the economic difficulties of these two types of people will definitely have an impact on the consumer goods market. In these cases, the expansion of advertising in the 1920s and the increase in installment credit would have adverse consequences. Credit installment sales are trying to inflate the consumer goods market. Between 1924 and 1929, installment sales rose from about $2 billion to $3.5 billion, which is an astonishing rate of growth. Undoubtedly, the use of installment payment method of credit sales has increased the sales of durable consumer goods such as cars, radios, furniture, and household electrical appliances. However, the widespread use of installment sales has also demonstrated the fact that the consumer goods market cannot accommodate the large volumes of products produced by the industrial sector without increased lending. And, from an economic point of view, this method of selling loans is inherently dangerous. As long as consumer credit, or installment credit, is cut, consumers are likely to buy less. In addition, a large influx of capital into the United States has also caused this situation. In the 1920s, as many countries paid war debts, money continued to flow into the United States. The United States gold reserves increased from $1.924 billion to $4.499 billion between 1913 and 1924. Or half of the world's total gold reserves, and these influx of money cannot find other investment environment, can only be put into the stock market. The acceleration has pushed up the stock market boom, which has piled up US industrial production. But the stock market is booming, no problem. Of course, the US stock market broke out in advance, and Romania's early withdrawal of capital also had a certain impact. The withdrawal of $900 million in funds will inevitably affect the stock market. But for Edel, he doesn't care about the life and death of the American people. Anyway, it is bound to happen. It is important to save yourself first. Chapter 549. The Great Depression is coming. As the stock market collapsed, the US economy was plunged into full-blown catastrophe, and a horrific chain reaction occurred quickly. Because of the losses, many families rushed to the bank to withdraw their deposits, and the withdrawal of a large number of deposits made many small banks unable to support them. Because they also lost a lot of money in this stock market downturn, many small banks were crowded by people who were withdrawing money because they couldn't get the money to give to these depositors. Bankruptcies happen in just such a situation, which in turn leads to more people rushing into the bank to get their actual hard-earned money out. Then a larger wave of runs broke out. However, the enterprises that were forced by the depositors to find the loan immediately demanded to recover the loan, and the enterprises that also suffered heavy losses could not pay the bank. For the same reason, they also have no money. It's like a cycle. Depositors run on banks. Banks force companies to pay back. Corporate bankruptcy makes more people run on banks. Banks force more companies to pay back, so more people lose their jobs during this time. The unemployed in the United States reached 8.3 million, accounting for almost 9% of the total population of the United States. In cities across the United States, the poor line up for blocks of food. Don't forget that there are family members waiting to live behind it, which equates to a quarter to a third of American households losing their source of income. As a result, 2 to 4 million middle school students dropped out, and many committed suicide because they could not bear the physical and psychological pain. The social order was deteriorating day by day. At this time, it is no longer an economic problem, but a social one. And the amplitudes in the US are helpless because at this point they still believe that the market will automatically adjust. The difficulties at this time are only short-lived, and the US economy will continue to grow in the future. In essence, America's difficulties have only just begun. According to latest statistics, the US economy has been declining year by year since 1929. Until the trough of 1933, the US gross domestic product was almost halved, and the national economy reached the point of no confidence at all. The September 1932 Fortune magazine estimated that 34 million adults, men, women, and children in the United States had no income, nearly 28% of the population. And this study, like other reports, does not include the 11 million rural households that are suffering in another hell. About finding a job, there are many legends around 1932. Some of them sound bizarre, but they are not true at all. There were indeed people at the door of the Detroit Employment Agency all night. There is indeed an Arkansas man who walks 900 miles to find a job. An employment agency on 6th Street in Manhattan recruited 300 people, and indeed 5,000 people came to apply. Someone did set fires in the woods in Washington state, so that people can hire him as a firefighter in that era of economic depression. There were more than 15 million people looking for work everywhere, but there was no work anywhere. Business Week conducted a survey and confirmed that many people no longer like the United States. Some have left the United States, and some are trying to leave. In the early 1930s, the number of people who moved abroad exceeded those who moved in every year, and many people were attracted by the Soviet Union and immigrated to the Soviet Union. So how did the poor in America get through this time? Men's razor blades are sharpened and reused. Roll your own cigarettes or smoke wings cards, a pack of a dime. To save power, use 25-watt bulbs instead. The children picked up soda bottles and went to the shop to get their money back, 1 for 2 cents, and went to the bakery to line up to buy the bread for Jisoo. The women cut the old sheets and sewed the sides together, thus moving the freight areas in the middle to the sides. Change your clothes to your daughter so that you won't look shabby in front of the neighbor's wife. In fact, the neighbor's money is just as tight, and I'm afraid the same approach will be adopted. Many people keep the Christmas cards they receive so that they can be sent to other friends next year in the countryside, especially the peasants in the Midwest. Life is extremely bleak. As agricultural prices plummeted, a large number of farmers went bankrupt. Millions of people are saved from death only by living like beasts. Pennsylvania rednecks eat grass roots and dandelions. People in Kentucky eat violet leaves, wild onions, forget-me-nots, wild lettuce, and weeds traditionally reserved for livestock. The mothers of the children in the city lingered and waited on the pier, and as soon as rotten fruits and vegetables were thrown out, they went up to compete with the wild dogs. Vegetables were loaded into trucks from the dock, and they ran after them, picking up anything that fell. A cook at a Midwest hotel left a bucket of leftovers in an alley outside the kitchen, and a dozen people rushed out of the darkness to grab it. Families were also seen walking into the rubbish heap to pick up bones and watermelon rinds to chew on. Because of the abundance of maggots, there is a widow in Chicago who always takes off her glasses when picking up something to eat. Since the American people are living so badly, what about the European side? First of all, Britain and France, which played a leading role in Europe, also lost weight. At this time, Britain's traditional heavy industry was also declining. In 1921, Britain's unemployment rate reached nearly 17%. Throughout the 1920s, the number of unemployed in the United Kingdom remained around 1 million per year. The Great Depression naturally added fuel to the fire, when British foreign trade fell by 23%, with a large number of bank failures, business failures, and workers losing their jobs. The measures taken by the Labour government during this period were also standard classical liberalism. The result of these measures, either job losses or wage cuts, certainly cannot save the UK economy. Fortunately, the United Kingdom still has colonies to dump products, but it also makes the United Kingdom unable to deal with European affairs. First of all, he needs to save himself. France, on the other hand, was not hit directly by the Great Depression until 1931, but within 2 years French industrial production fell by 26%. The French economy was in crisis throughout the 1930s, and it was not until June 1939 that French industrial production returned to 1931 levels. It was not until 1950, after World War II, that French industry returned to its 1929 level point. If Britain and France still have a chance to breathe, then Germany is the worst point from 1924. Through the Dawes Plan and the Jan Plan, the Weimar German economy was temporarily stabilized. However, it was precisely because Germany followed the economic rationalization of the United States during this period that the labor conditions of German workers were deteriorating, and the unemployment rate was also rising. It is precisely because of the role of these two plans that the Weimar economy's dependence on the United States is particularly profound. As of 1928, US investment in Weimar Germany was as high as $4 billion, when total US investment in Europe was $8 billion. The Great Depression hit the Weimar economy particularly hard. Germany's industrial output fell sharply, and workers were doomed. By early 1932, Germany's official unemployment rate was as high as 1/3, or 6 million workers, not counting the 2 million unofficial workers unemployed. As for other European countries, they suffered huge losses in this Great Depression. Banks went bankrupt, businesses stopped working, and people lost their jobs, which also tormented governments of all countries. And this Great Depression has also divided the minds of the European people. Left-wing and right-wing parties have attracted a lot of attention. They urgently need a government to help them out of the predicament. As for Romania, which belongs to Europe, it is inevitable that it is also affected by the Great Depression. Chapter 550 Romania, 039, S New Deal, 1. Your Majesty, my country's exports have fallen by 18%. Many factories are underoperated, and many workers have been fired. At present, the market is panicking about the economy, and the previous government's intervention could not appease the public's emotions, so the government wants to ask Your Majesty, stand up and support Romania's economy. Inside the palace, Prime Minister Caraccioli was giving Edel a worrying report on the current domestic economic dynamics. Will it work if I stand up? Edel stood up and answered His Excellency the Prime Minister. At least it can reduce the panic in the market. Many people are afraid of the situation in the United States. At present, the number of people who withdraw deposits in Romania's major banks is twice as high as before. Fortunately, under His Majesty's advice, the banks are well prepared. Cash is the only way to deal with this situation. The Prime Minister's words made Edel speechless. In fact, in order to deal with the Runan wave, Edel quietly gave the Prime Minister a trick. That is to print an additional batch of banknotes, as long as it gives the impression that the bank is trustworthy. At first, the Prime Minister was a little reluctant, but after seeing the bank being run and bankrupt in the United States, he immediately agreed. Although Romania's banking industry is mainly supported by the government and its scale is also large, it is better to let the bank prepare more banknotes just in case. Anyone who knows the banking industry knows that there is not too much cash in the bank, and the savings it absorbs basically change hands and lend it out, or buy various financial products to preserve value. The outbreak of the financial crisis in the United States has made Romanian banks more vigilant. Many loans have been recovered as much as possible, and there are emergency funds provided by the government, which are enough to resist the impact of this time point. Although the banking industry has resisted the impact, the economic problems encountered by other countries have caused setbacks in Romania's exports. Exports to European and American countries fell across the board, which made the Prime Minister feel bad. So he approached Edel to discuss how to face this economic crisis affecting the world. How about the infrastructure construction plan you were asked to do last time? Edel seemed to be asking about the plan that he hadn't asked about for a long time. Your Majesty is ready. This time, we have learned the lessons from the past and prepared an infrastructure construction plan of up to 8 billion lei. It is mainly used in the construction of railways, roads, docks, etc. When the Prime Minister spoke out about the plan made this time, Edel frowned. Still too little, not enough. Edel's words made Prime Minister Caraccioli almost fall. Your Majesty, this is already the maximum plan. Based on the government's finances. Caraccioli's understanding of the economy is now a common phenomenon in Europe, so Edel decided to give him a popular science about the power of deficit finance. I know that, but we can invest more money to increase the scale of infrastructure construction. I think the 20 billion lei funding for infrastructure construction is reasonable. Faced with such a big surprise from Edel, Prime Minister Caraccioli said with some horror, Your Majesty, our country doesn't have so much money unless it is invested with funds shipped back from the United States. But didn't these funds have been decided on other uses before? Facing Caraccioli's words, Edel replied, Yes, I intend to use these funds for other purposes, but it does not mean that the government cannot take out those funds. The power to issue money is in the hands of the government. In Edel's words, it was obvious that he had to play tricks on issuing banknotes, which made it difficult for the Prime Minister to accept. Your Majesty, you must know that the current monetary policy cannot be easily changed, otherwise the impact on our economy will be too great. The Prime Minister's words are also very reasonable. At present, all countries are implementing the gold standard, while countries with insufficient capital will issue their own currencies based on the US dollar or the British pound. However, the gold reserves of various countries are far from meeting the economic needs. So overissued currency is very common in various countries. Generally, it is 3 to 6 times the excess gold reserves, and Romania currently maintains this level. Edel's words clearly intend to depreciate the value of lei, which is good for exports, but it will also increase the living burden of residents. The devaluation of the money in the hands of residents will cause some social problems. I know this, but at present the first thing to do is to ensure the sustainable development of the economy. If there is an economic crisis, it will cause even greater losses to the people. Edel didn't know that this would cause some problems, but Romania is not the Soviet Union and is independent of the world economy. The impact of the Great Depression is destined to come. If you don't prepare early, it will inevitably lead to social unrest, just like other European countries. In fact, the overissue of currency is more like drawing wealth from the hands of the people, and there must be some dissatisfaction. But it would at least allow the government to raise money to forcibly pull the economy up and prevent Romania from falling into the situation of other countries. This is also the reason why Romania's national population and resources are insufficient. Insufficient population cannot form a sufficient domestic market, and insufficient resources make many raw materials need to be imported, and these raw materials are basically affected by the economy. If there were as many people and raw materials as the Soviet Union, Edel would dare to play behind closed doors. At present, he only has the $900 million in funds brought back from the United States, and these funds are also ready to be used for bargain hunting. Of course, they cannot be invested in domestic construction. So I can only grieve the Prime Minister and others. Anyway, this is a decision made by the government. Being scolded by the people is also a problem of the government, and Edel is just a monarch deceived by the government. In the next parliamentary election, a change of prime minister can calm people's emotions. As for the hard-working prime minister, he has served as prime minister for 2 terms anyway, and he is destined to step down in the future. It is better to make his final contribution to the position of prime minister. It's not Edel being ruthless, it's politics. His Excellency the Prime Minister has also been quiet in politics for many years, and he should understand this. What Edel meant. What did Caraccioli not understand? His Majesty's efforts to expand the deficit to boost the economy have never been seen before. But that doesn't mean he doesn't know its role, and investing money into infrastructure will always be useful. And can he go against Edel's meaning? You can't just do it according to His Majesty's request. Your Majesty, I will go back and do as you ordered. I will let the government come up with a construction plan as soon as possible. In late 1929, the government was facing a moment of public concern about the future of the economy. Come up with an infrastructure plan of up to 20 billion lei. In this plan, several major transportation lines will be built in the country. Construction of the first railway from Lviv to Odessa will start next year, as will the second double line from Constanta to Bekashobor via Bucharest. The third, Bekash-Chobeo, crossed the Transcarpathian Mountains to Lviv to start the construction of the railway. The fourth railway from the capital Bucharest to Odessa via Galati was started. These 4 railways are also called 2 vertical and 2 horizontal trunk lines, and will play a role that cannot be underestimated, whether it is for economic improvement or the transfer of troops. In addition to these 4 railways, the railways currently owned by Romania will also be upgraded and maintained. In addition, Romania will build 3 highways. One highway from Bucharest to Lviv, which will pass through Buzor, Bacoor and other domestic elite areas. A high road from Galati to Odessa will benefit people on both sides of the road. There is also a ring highway from Bucharest to Constanta to Varna, and then back to Bucharest through Giuligio, which will also drive the economic development of the region. These high grades are paved roads with 2-way 4-lane roads, designed to reach 65 highway per hour. It can be said to be the best road facilities in Romania at present. In addition, the expansion and dredging of Odessa Constanta, the 2 most important ports in Romania, are carried out in order to shorten the detention time of goods in the ports. Then, for the river transport that is still important in Romania at present, the river ports such as Giuligiu, Calerahi and Galati will be updated, and the dredging of the Danube will also be increased. There is a new increase in shipping volume. In addition, the government also did not let go of water conservancy facilities. Romania will build a hydropower station with a total installed capacity of 2.8 million kilowatts on the Danube, which will not only facilitate irrigation, but also reduce the harm of floods downstream. The power station is located in Mehedinsk County, which is adjacent to Yugoslavia, and the terrain here is suitable for the construction of the hydropower station. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.